of women whose murders have never been solved. Today, Interpol are talking to us about their campaign to identify 47 women whose identities are unknown and who are all victims of murder. This is the story of one of those women who they have been able to identify. Rita Roberts was born in Cardiff in 1960, where she grew up in the Grangetown area of the city. Rita's life was challenging at times, but she always had the love of her sister Donna.
Rita was a tough, independent woman, and she took no nonsense. She stood up for her family and friends, but equally, she was a joyful personality. Her life was full of colour, and she brought colour into my younger life, and she'll always be the part of the person I am today.
In the early 1990s, Rita left Cardiff for the Netherlands.
We were in contact with each other through letters, and she was in Amsterdam or Rotterdam because they are the addresses that I have for her.
In May 1992, Rita's sister Donna received a simple postcard. That was the last time she would hear from her sister.
Rita was needy. So if we didn't hear anything within about 3 weeks, there was, right, where is she? What's she doing? What's she up to? Then me and my mum were corresponding with each other. If you heard from Rita, no.
As the weeks went by, Rita's family grew concerned for her welfare.
There was a crash in Amsterdam where a plane went into a building. And because we haven't heard anything from Rita at that stage, we wondered whether she had been a victim in that block of flats.
Rita's family also considered that she may have just wanted a fresh start.
Maybe she's had enough of the family. She's gone, she's married this person, she's gone to have children, she's got on with her own life.
But despite those theories, Rita's sister Donna began searching for her.
What I did do was ring missing persons. For the next few years, I used to go online and I used to go on these different websites looking at deceased and, unidentified bodies and stuff like that, and never, recognized anything, or, sometimes you didn't even know what you were looking for, but it was just hope. I had hope there was something there.
Despite searching for the next 30 years, Rita's family had no idea what had happened to her. Then in May 2023, Donna's daughter saw an Interpol appeal called Operation Identify Me, searching for information about unidentified bodies.
That day, I was gardening, I got a call. She said, "Do you want to go into the house?"
Donna's daughter knew that Rita had a very specific black rose tattoo, which she believed was similar to the one she spotted in the Interpol appeal.
My body just shook, and I broke into tears. We're crying. It was very emotional. But your brain is in denial. No, 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 no.
Interpol were able to explain some of the details about what had happened to Rita. They confirmed that in June 1992, just a few months after Donna received the last postcard from Rita, her body was found at a water filter grate in a canal in Antwerp, Belgium. She had been violently killed.
I learned that Rita was murdered. I was absolutely blown away that this had happened to her. It was the furthest thing from my mind, and I am still working through this trauma. It's important that we try, after all these years, to find out who did this to her. Somebody knows something out there, and it's important that we still pursue it.
Rita's killer has never been found, and her family have many unanswered questions, but they have at least been able to lay her to rest.
If it wasn't for this first campaign, I would have never have found Rita, and she would have been lost forever. And I know where she is. She's at peace, she's at rest.
Truly tragic case there. Well, I'm joined now by Dr. Susan Hitchen, head of the DNA unit at Interpol HQ in Lyon, France. She's been part of Operation Identify Me since its launch in May 2023. Susan, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to talk in a bit more detail about the Rita Roberts case in a moment. But first of all, can you just tell us exactly how Operation Identify Me came about?
So, Operation Identify Me is a global public campaign with the aim to identify the bodies of women who have been found across Europe. This initiative began with the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany, and has recently been expanded to include cases from France, Italy and Spain. However, these women could have come from anywhere around the world, which is why Interpol is helping to coordinate the efforts. As you mentioned earlier, we have 47 cases of unidentified females that we're trying to find out who they are and where they've come from. And because they have died through murder or through suspicious circumstances, this really does reflect the issue of femicide. We're hoping that this appeal will be able to reach those intended persons, and then we'll be able to bring some closure to the families. We are aware that they have various aspects, and this is how we have named some of those cases. It could be the location where they have been found, or some distinctive features such as jewelry. And all of these women are subject of an Interpol Black Notice, which is a global police alert seeking information on dead bodies. And for the first time for this campaign, Interpol has made extracts of these Black Notices available on our public website in the hope that the public can help us identify these women.
Now, we heard about the case of Rita Roberts, who we saw was identified, but her killer may still be out there. How can the public help? What information are you still looking for?
Yes, so we're aware that Rita arrived in Antwerp in Belgium in February 1992, and her body was discovered in June 1992. And so we're appealing for information on anybody who may be aware of her movements in Belgium at that time, or of people she may have met. And this will help piece together information on the circumstances surrounding her death and could lead potentially to finding her killer.
And Susan, there are 46 women that you're hoping to close a chapter on, to give them some closure. There's one case that's actually personally affected you.
Yes, well, all of these cases are tragic, but I do find this case to be particularly poignant due to the victim's young age and also the story of her life of difficulty that we've obtained from her remains. So this is a German case. It's called The Girl Found in the River Main. She was estimated to be 13 to 16 years old. After she had been murdered, she had been wrapped, put into a fetal position, wrapped into a blanket, and then attached to a parasol stand in order likely to weight her body in the river to cause it to sink. What is particular interest is that she was tied up with what we call naras. Now, these are traditional drawstring belts that are often found in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we'd be very interested to know more about these types of bands. She also had distinctive signs of abuse, including unhealed broken bones, cigarette burns and scars. And through forensic examination, she is believed to have come from Afghanistan, Pakistan or northern India and had moved to Germany before the age of 5.
Just so sad, this case, isn't it, Susan? How can the UK audience help with this?
Well, we're appealing to the South Asian community watching this programme in the hope that maybe they know something about this case, but also about those naras. Are they recognisable, the particular shape and style? It would be very helpful to know where they come from. As you say, this is a very tragic case and we would very much like to know who this girl is.
Absolutely. We've got another case that we can move on to. Now, this has a distinct link to the UK, doesn't it?
Yes, so we've called this case The Woman on the Boat. In 1998, the remains of a woman aged between 25 and 35 years old was found in the wreckage of a fire on a houseboat that took place on a canal close to the centre of Amsterdam. She was known locally through investigation as Karen or Catherine. She's known to be British, or believed to be British, and she was known only to be speaking in the English language. However, through investigation, they realised that her name may have not been her true name that she was given. She had distinctive features of eczema and particularly severe skin condition around the knees. And we'd very much like to know if there's any information that the public may have. She also wore red, constantly would wear in red, and maybe this can help jog someone's memory.
There's a final case that we can talk about this morning. This one is called the Girl with a 10p coin.
Yes, so the last case that we're appealing on this programme is about a case of a young girl. Her remains were found in France, in wasteland, close to the city of Nantes. She's estimated to be 16 to 23 years old. And although this case from 1982 dates back 43 years, there is a very intriguing connection to the United Kingdom. For amongst the possessions she had, a leather necklace and another necklace with a military pendant, she also had a 10p coin. And that is of particular interest because 40 years ago, travelling was not as accessible. And so we'd be very interested to know what that connection could be. And maybe we can find out who she is, and with the hope of being able to trace her family.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it, Susan? As with the Rita Roberts case, there are situations where you are able to find answers, you are able to identify these women. What would you urge viewers to do today?
Well, we would urge the families of missing persons to share their DNA with the police, and our UK Interpol Bureau will be able to add that DNA to Interpol's missing persons DNA database called iFamiliar. And this will enable us to work across countries more quickly to solve these crimes. And we would also like to reassure the public that we are doing everything we can to identify these women and other cases of missing persons, because we have to remember that these women have been made a victim twice. First in life through being killed, and secondly in death by having their identity removed from them. And so we want to return them their names. We want to return these women to their families. And if they have died through an act of violence, we want to be able to seek justice for them.
Susan, thank you so much for coming in today and telling us more about these women. The website details are on the screen now, and you can also get in touch with us using any of the details below.
Now, for our first appeal this morning, we're in Suffolk, where a picturesque stretch of river became an unlikely crime scene.
This is somebody's family member. This is somebody's son, father, uncle. There will be people out there who will be missing them. Until we know who this individual is, we really can't bring justice to them or their family.
On Thursday, 27th of August 2020, a local walker was taking a stroll next to the River Stour in the Suffolk town of Sudbury when they spotted some black bin bags.
They called one of the park rangers. They've gone down, they've recovered 2 bags, which they found to be quite heavy. And as they're doing that, they've noticed quite a strong chemical smell coming from the bags. They've opened one of the bags, and it's at that point that they've seen inside when a call like this comes in, the first thoughts are, is this what we really think it is? A report of what appear to be human bones can often be found to be animal.
But closer analysis revealed that the remains were human, and there was evidence of foul play.
In the first bag were what we believe to be the arms of an individual, but also within the bag was a boots carrier bag. Within that boots carrier bag were a number of stones to weigh these bags down. And then when we moved the second bag and the legs were found, the smell came from what we initially described as air fresheners, the type of thing that you would see in public toilets to potentially block any smell. There were around 27 quite deep lacerations caused probably by a heavy-bladed weapon, but not actually a cause of death.
Suspecting other remains may have been dumped nearby, police called in specialist dive teams.
We needed to search the river thoroughly. As a result of that, they found another bag. Within there were some further bone fragments. We had the bone down to the side of the nose and then a small part of the jaw, and within the jaw we had 2 teeth.
DNA testing showed they were all from the same person. A post-mortem examination couldn't pinpoint the cause of death, but the police say it was an adult man with an athletic or muscular build.
Police ran DNA checks to see if the victim was on a missing persons register or on the national DNA database, but there was no match.
We could tell that it was an adult approximately 5'6" to 5'9" in height. What we were then able to do is start to look at carbon dating and start to look at using the teeth that we had, but also sections of the bone. What we found is that our victim was in their late 50s to early 60s, born pre-1955 to early 1950s. They were likely to be of North European ancestry. They were likely to have had blue-green eyes and at birth likely to have had blonde hair.
Police looked at reported sightings and established the bags had been deposited in the river 7 to 10 days before being spotted. But carbon dating led them to believe the death was not recent.
We believe the date of death was between 2008 and 2012, and that's quite significant because there's quite a long pause then between death and between the discovery of the remains.
Police suspected the man had been murdered and his body stored elsewhere for a number of years before being dumped in the river.
The feet were pushed up towards the shins and the arms were bent in. So they may have been put into quite a tight confine to try and obviously cover up the murder. It's difficult to say whether or not this is definitively linked to organised crime. What we do know, from the state in which the remains were found, with the skull appearing to have a number of injuries, that this was a serious level of violence that was used against the individual when they were killed. And that could attribute to organised criminality.
So far, the identity of the victim and his killer remain a mystery.
It's really important that we identify our victim. What I'm really conscious about is this was somebody's loved one, this was somebody's family member. And until such time as we can identify them, we can't notify their loved ones. The other thing that identifying the victim will do is it will allow us to understand their lifestyle and allow us then to look at those other lines of inquiry that may generate to establish what may have happened to them, who may have been responsible for it, and to ultimately bring those people to justice.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Superintendent Mike Brown from Suffolk Police, who you saw in the film there. Good to have you with us, Mike. I mean, this is a really gruesome discovery in a normally very quiet community. Take us back to the start. When were you first alerted?
So this was August 2020, and we received a call from one of the park rangers who'd been asked by members of the public to come and take some rubbish out of the river, what they thought were just black bags. What they found inside of those bags was some smaller carrier bags. Inside that was some half bricks, some stones, some air fresheners, and unfortunately then some human remains. But you're right, it's a beautiful area of the Suffolk countryside and completely unexpected. Yeah,
a really shocking thing to have happened. What were you able to find out about the victim?
So through carbon dating, DNA and ancestry, what we were able to understand is that they were likely born pre-1955, so they would have been late 50s, 60s in age. We believe that they would have been white North European male, probably born with blonde hair, but this may have darkened over time, and had blue-green eyes. And again, from the remains that we found, they were probably quite physically fit in terms of their stature.
Now, the victim had some significant injuries to his skull, didn't he?
Yeah, we carried out a huge search of the area, as you can imagine, brought in resources nationally, dive teams, search dogs going through. And we actually recovered a smaller bag a little further down the river, and within that we found a portion of the skull, and on the skull it had 23 separate injuries to it, so a significant number of injuries, but none of those were believed to have been the cause of death.
Gosh. And what about the bags in question? Is there anything of note about them?
Yeah, the bag I just mentioned there with the portions of skull, it was a blue bag, similar to that you'd find perhaps on a market stall, fruit and veg, so unmarked, quite cheap in what it was. But the other bags we had were a little bit more distinctive. We had a company that was local both to Sudbury and surrounding areas called Thingamybobs, one of their carrier bags, and we also had a Boots carrier bag. And what we were able to do from the logos on those bags, we were actually able to date them to around that 2008 to 2012 period.
So you actually have a pretty good idea of when the bags were dumped as well, don't you?
Yeah, we do. The community in Sudbury are really, really passionate about the river, about the walking areas, about keeping this clean. So we had a number of sightings and working with the community, engaging and getting the descriptions of them. We think it was probably a week to 10 days before they were actually recovered that they were put into the river.
And your working hypothesis, as it stands, is that the victim was actually killed sometime before all of this?
Again, yeah, through the dating that we've done, we think the victim actually was probably killed in that 2008 to 2012 period. So they've been stored for a very long time before being moved and put in the river. And it's really important to us to identify where exactly the remains were held before being dumped.
You also want to reiterate that you don't believe that this actually happened in the town of Sudbury itself.
Sudbury, this is so unusual for Sudbury to have something of this scale or this significance within it. We are on the borders with Essex, but there's a number of other opportunities, and the remoteness of this site would lead it, if there's people with any kind of knowledge or just looking for that opportune place to drop something without being seen, and it is so unusual for Suffolk and for Sudbury.
So, Mike, how can the viewers watching this morning help?
It's really, really important for us to identify our victim, to understand who they are. By doing that, we can look at their antecedents, the people around them. That may help us solve this crime, but also their family. They'll have loved ones, they'll have family members who we can then tell and we can then update. But again, if people have got that memory of somebody going missing around those times, or a location that they think may have been used to store it, that's who we want to hear from.
Mike, thank you so much.
Now, earlier I spoke to DS Pemby Raya from the Met Police about a very difficult case of a non-recent sexual assault on a child. As you can imagine, this appeal covers some difficult themes, so please do bear that in mind. I started by asking her to talk us through what happened.
Yes, so we received a report last year from a very brave young boy who reported that back in the summer of 2016, when he was only 8 years old, he was seriously sexually assaulted. He's now 16. He's had the courage to come forward and report it to police, and he told us that in the summer of 2016 he was playing football on Mayors Green near his home address when he was approached by the suspect, who told him he had a son also interested in football and led him to his son, essentially, or what the victim thought he was doing. He's then taken him to a block of flats, and on the ground floor communal area he's then proceeded to seriously sexually assault him.
Now, you mentioned it was Enfield, but do you know any more specifics about when and where this occurred?
So we don't have a date or time, as the victim was only 8, he can't recall those specifics. But we do know that he was initially approached on Mayor Green, and it was from there that the suspect has led him to a block of flats on Pentreath Avenue, as you can see there, and on the ground floor communal areas where he was seriously sexually assaulted. Now, the victim recalls the suspect suddenly fleeing from the scene, as he believes that he was disturbed by a noise, and the victim was left within the flats. He's then left in tears and made his way back home.
It really is such a sad image, and the victim has given us this statement to convey that impact that this has had on him. He says, "When I got home, I felt as if I couldn't speak. I was in shock. I couldn't even explain what happened. I was overthinking how my parents would react, even though they are very supportive. I was worried that if I told them, they would think I had made a silly decision that had led up to the situation happening. It's so powerful hearing those words. What do you think it was that gave this young man the confidence to finally speak out?
He's been carrying this trauma for the past 8 years, and understandably, he found it difficult to talk about, but he's now found the confidence to confide in his parents and the police. And ultimately, what he would like out of this is for the person responsible to be held accountable for what he's done to him. And ultimately, if anyone else is a victim of a similar crime or even victim to the same suspect, for them to now feel the courage to come forward and report it to the police.
It'd just be so important, and we want to help with that. Now, this happened a while ago, this absolutely horrific crime. There's not a huge amount of information to go on, but what do you know about the suspect?
So we have no CCTV or images, but from the victim, he described him as a white older male. He had an English accent, was around 5'9" in height, but distinctively he had a thick grey-white beard and also a purple mark under his right eye, which could either be a birthmark or possibly a bruise. So that should really stand out about the suspect. And
also, he mentioned something about the boots as well, which may be a clue.
Yeah, it may be a clue in terms of what work he does or what he's doing in the area, but that's quite distinctive.
This is what he described as big, heavy-duty black boots. And as you say, that distinctive mark under his eye could be a bruise, could be a birthmark, but he certainly remembered that, didn't he? Now, this sounds difficult to solve, but we can and do get results from cases like this. Who do you want to hear from today?
I'm reaching out to the local community of Enfield, particularly around the area of Mayor Green. It was a busy summer, 2016. Rio Olympics were on. Leicester City had just won their first Premier League in history, so that may jog your memory in terms of when it was. If anyone can recall seeing this man, he did have a distinctive bruise or birthmark under his eye. You may know who he is. He may be local to the community. He may have done something similar to you or your child. If you do have any further information, we would encourage you to come forward with anything that you've got.
First this morning, in 2012, English teacher and new father Adam Pickles had been enjoying an evening out when a minor traffic incident led to his murder. Some viewers may find parts of this upsetting.
He was a caring young man. He was very charismatic. And I've never known anybody have as many friends as Adam had throughout his life.
He was a very, very good guitarist. Basically, he was self-taught by listening to his heroes. We wrote and recorded music together. Adam got a job opportunity to work in the centre of Thailand at an international school.
I remember him saying to me once, "Mum, I absolutely love my job and I cannot imagine doing anything else."
He moved over there and loved the lifestyle out there from the day he arrived.
Whilst living in Thailand, Adam started a family and had a boy named Ben.
To have a little grandson was magic.
Adam, he was wonderful. He spent every moment that he could with him and just absolutely adored his little boy.
On the 17th of May 2012, 8 months after his son was born, Adam had been in the Starlight Bar in the Nong Pru district of Pattaya City in the east of Thailand. Just before 11 p.m, he finished there.
Adam left the Starlight Bar. He walks across to his vehicle, he gets in and starts to reverse out of the parking space. Clipping another vehicle. Adam may not have even known he'd done that. The suspect is alleged to have turned round and shouted towards Adam that he'd caused some damage. Adam either doesn't hear this or doesn't see him, and he drives away in the direction of his home address. Within a matter of seconds, the suspect gets into his car and leaves the bar following Adam. We believe that vehicle to be a Toyota Fortuner 4x4 type vehicle.
The suspect, thought to be a British national, chased Adam for 1.5 miles down the road before forcing him to stop in front of a place called Paradise Bar.
Adam was dragged from his vehicle and he was hit over the head with a heavy metal object. He was hit so hard, Adam obviously didn't get a chance to react, he was just set upon. The suspect drags Adam to the side of the road and just leaves him. He then returns to the Starlight Bar. He meets with the people he was originally stood with, according to eyewitnesses.
Adam was taken to hospital with severe injuries.
We got a telephone call and one of the doctors said he is very seriously ill, 5% chance of living. You must get here as soon as possible.
It's every parent's nightmare, isn't it, really? We were on a 12-hour flight. We'd no idea at that point whether Adam was still alive and whether we were going to get there in time.
When we landed, first question was, is he still alive? And we're told, yes, we're going to the hospital now. He's still in intensive care.
The consultant told us how serious it was. He actually showed us a picture of Adam's damaged brain, and he told us there and then that he didn't know if he'd pull through. If he did, that he was going to be very, very severely injured. Adam's friend was with us, and I remember him grabbing me as he was telling this, because because I thought I was going to pass out. Adam was in a coma then for 6 months, but he was left with such severe injuries that he couldn't see, he couldn't stand, he couldn't move his body at all. The only movement really that he had was in his arms, and the only way he could communicate with us was to lift his thumb. He was fed through a peg in his stomach, and he needed 24-hour care. This vibrant, strong young man was just destroyed.
Ben's relationship with his dad was wonderful because he couldn't really remember him being other than how he was after the attack. And he was marvellous with him. He'd read to his dad, him show him pictures, tell him stories. He'd climb up and sit on his knee. And that was just how he was, and he accepted him totally as that. And within the limits that they had a wonderful relationship. Ben clearly loved him very much.
Adam passed away on the 3rd of January 2021.
It was a mixed experience in that you're so distraught because you know that he's gone, and yet you also know that he's not suffering anymore. 9 years of suffering, pain, and he was very brave. You know, he got through it all.
Following Adam's death, a murder inquiry was launched in the UK.
A pathologist was asked to look at the medical records from Adam's initial assault and has concluded that there is a causative link between the original traumatic head injuries and his death. Therefore, this is now a murder inquiry.
There's a terrible wrong been done here, and anybody that knows any little detail, no matter how small, then let us know, let the police know, and we would be forever grateful.
It just seems to me it's such a waste of life for the sake of a scratch on a car. Adam still lives on in our hearts. He's in our minds every day. He'll never be forgotten.
Well, I'm now joined by DCI Damien Roebuck from West Yorkshire Police Homicide and Major Inquiry Team. Damien, good morning. Thank you for coming in. It's nearly 13 years on since this happened, but understandably, his parents are still traumatised by what happened.
They've waited 13 years to see justice from receiving that first phone call to say Adam had been so severely injured in the assault, to travelling out there to be with him and getting him back into this country, and then looking after him for 9 years and caring for him for 9 years until his death in January 2021.
Absolutely horrific. Can you just remind everyone when and where this assault took place?
So Thursday the 17th of May 2012, Adam, who had been living in Thailand for a number of years and had got a young family there, as we know, working as an English teacher, had been to a solicitor's that day because he was looking at visa documentation to bring the family over to England. He'd stopped at the Starlight Bar on his way home, as we can see on the map, and he stopped there for a drink. He wasn't there that long. On leaving the bar, he's got into his vehicle, he started reversing out, and we think he's clipped another vehicle within that parking lot. Now, the suspect, it was his vehicle, we believe. From the film we say, he actually calls out to Adam. Adam didn't realise, and he drives off. He drives the 1.5 miles up towards the Paradise Bar, where we believe both vehicles have stopped. Adam is dragged out of the car and severely beaten with what we believe is a metal bar, what the suspect had in his vehicle. Adam is dragged to the side of the road, and that's when the police and the authorities are called within Thailand.
And Adam's just left there at the side of the road.
Just left there,
The suspect's
yes.
just left him literally unconscious at the side of the road. It's absolutely horrific. Now, you've mentioned there's two cars that's involved. What do you know about the vehicles?
So we know that Adam was driving a Cherry sedan in orange. That was Adam's car, and the witnesses are telling us that the other vehicle, the suspect vehicle, was a 4x4 type vehicle, a Toyota Fortuner, we believe. Now, we believe that was light coloured, but we're not sure on the actual colour of the vehicle. But what all witnesses have said is a 4x4 vehicle and potentially a Toyota Fortuner.
OK, now, this was an assault initially. It happened abroad in Thailand, but we know now it's a murder inquiry here in the UK. Why is that?
It's a murder inquiry because a Home Office forensic pathologist has looked at all the medical records and the cause of death, and he's concluded that there's a causative link between that initial horrific assault and Adam's death. Therefore, it is a murder inquiry, and it's right that West Yorkshire Police actually conduct those investigations.
We need to get you some answers today. Is there anyone in particular that you want to hear from?
There are three sets of people that I specifically want to hear from. We know the suspect goes back to the Starlight Bar, to the people he'd actually been drinking with outside at a table. He's remonstrating to them and he's been quite animated. I think he's telling those exactly what's happened when he's confronted and assaulted Adam. So those people in that bar, I want those to come forward. I also appeal to any expats who are currently out there who will have been spoken to by this suspect, that he may have trivialised what actually happened and sort of played down the level of assault. So they may not realise how injured Adam was and subsequently his death. And then finally, people over here, we strongly believe the suspect's returned to England. Therefore, as he confided in somebody over here about this horrific assault, I'd love them to come forward and give justice for the family of Adam.
We need those answers. We know that a number of expats frequent or have lived in that area as well, so someone may well have heard about this.
They will. That Starlight Bar is a known bar. The actual victims, so the witnesses in the bar have actually said that they believe the suspects frequented it before, so he will be known over there. He will be known by the expat community.
We need to get you those answers, Damien. Thank you. If you have any information at all, please do get in contact with us using the details on screen. First this morning, last summer, an unknown man collapsed and died at a train station. Can you help detectives find out who he was?
The British Transport Police are the dedicated police force to the railways in the United Kingdom. We police over 10,000 miles of railway track, over 3,000 stations, and ensure the safety of millions of passengers on a daily basis. We have specialist training and knowledge of the railway system. This could include incidents impacting the running of the trains, as well as crime, which can range from theft to more serious incidents like rape or even murder. We're also specially trained in dealing with vulnerable persons. Whilst we solve many investigations, there are some that we are unable to solve. This sometimes includes persons who have passed away on the rail network. Shortly after midnight on the 12th of June 2024, railway staff at London Victoria Station met a man who was sat on a bench. As the station was closing, they asked him to leave the station and they escorted him from the station.
We're going to help you up, all right?
Look, 1, 2,
right.
3, come on.
1, 2, 3, on your... All right, good. Now just follow us straight. You need some assistance out as well? Let's go, come on.
Just as they got outside, the mail collapsed and an ambulance was called to provide emergency assistance to him. Sadly, despite their efforts, he passed away around an hour later. When a person passes away on the railway system, we launch an investigation, and that includes speaking to the coroner and trying to identify next of kin. In this case, the person didn't have a mobile phone, any identification documents on them to assist us. We have no idea if the person is a British national or has travelled from abroad. We have no information on this gentleman whatsoever. He was between 40 to 60 years of age, a shaved head, tanned complexion, around 5'7" in height. He had a very distinctive hunch, so he walked with a lean, and we hoped that that would help us in being a distinctive feature for the mail to try and find out who he is, but that hasn't been successful. During the post-mortem, whilst he appeared unkempt, his teeth were in a really good condition, so that could indicate to us that maybe he's not been part of the transient or homeless community for a long time. This might indicate a change of circumstances or maybe even travelling from a different country into the UK. So fingerprints were taken at the mortuary, which came back negative on the databases. We made inquiries with the local charities, local homeless support networks, and those who work within the station. No one had even seen a person matching his description. We then took a DNA sample, and that has also come back with no trace. The one item that he did have on him was an Oyster card. We know from the Oyster card journey history that the man first boarded a bus on the 11th of June, shortly after 1 o'clock in the afternoon from Praed Street, which is by St Mary's Hospital in Paddington. During the rest of the afternoon, he travelled on numerous buses across London and North East London before ultimately arriving at Victoria Rail Station on the evening of the 11th of June. The use of the bus network on that day and the previous days is somewhat random, and it could indicate that he was just using the buses to keep safe. This is a really sad case for us. It's not often that we are unable to identify who the person is. It's sad to think that someone could be out there missing this man, waiting for him to call and to speak to them. And it's really important for us to identify him and tell the family exactly what's happened to him.
Yeah, we really want to help find some answers to this case. I'm joined now by Detective Superintendent Sam Blackburn from British Transport Police. Really good to have you with us this morning. Before we get into the details of this case, you were actually on Crimewatch last series, weren't you? Have you got any updates from the appeals that you mentioned then?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. What a fabulous update and kind of inquiries we got back following that appeal. You know, we do have 50 unidentified fatalities spanning 50 years. But thanks to the viewers, we were managed to provisionally ID an individual only last month from 1983. That's 40 years ago, proving the power of Crimewatch viewers and just give us that information. And we've got a selection of them to come up now. We really want more information that my detectives can work on.
You know what, that's so incredible to hear. And as you said, from viewers getting in touch, you're able to piece key information together. So I'm really pleased to hear that it's helped. Let's turn our attention back to the case that we saw in the film just then. What more can you tell us? I mean, really sad, as Tony was saying there on the video. 40 to 60 years old, 5'8" in height. This male was at Victoria Station, succumbed to an illness, and sadly passed away outside Victoria Station just after midnight on the 12th of June. You've actually got a CCTV clip that we can show, thanks to something that he was carrying. Yeah, I mean, all he had was the bag that you see there, and on that was an unregistered Oyster card. And we see him travelling extensively on the bus network on the 11th of June for hours around London, boarding just out St Mary's Hospital in London. You know, why was he on the bus? Probably to keep safe, maybe warm. But what we need to know is, does anyone know him? He's 5'7", as I say, but he's got a pronounced hunch, stoop, curvature of the spine, which would have made him quite recognisable and just after anyone who would have seen him around London. Well, it is quite a distinctive look, isn't it? Any other bits of description that you can give that might help jog people's memories, perhaps? Yeah, I mean, he's got a shaved head. I mean, you know, the age is quite difficult to guess, but it is that back, I think, that will really mean, if you're with local charities, homeless, you know, come forward. And he may not even come from the UK. Well, as you say, if anybody has any information, you'd urge them to come forward. There were some other unsolved deaths on the transport network that you've actually come in to talk about today. We'll start with the one dating back to 2010. Yeah, 2010, North Acton Station. I mean, none of these are crimes, unfortunately, but, you know, wearing a dark blue jacket, this male was, with khaki trousers and canvas shoes. But what's interesting about him is the extensive tattoos he had. They're kind of homemade tattoos almost, or not of the highest quality. And I would really be interested in anyone who knew someone who maybe had the eagle, dragon on their chest, or the lizard on their arm with the banding around it, or the devil's motorbike, or the dolphins with the tribal marks around again on the arm. Those tattoos, I think, are very unique. Yeah. You know, if you knew a friend or a loved one or a colleague who had those tattoos, please come forward with a name and say, this was 2010. Let's go to our next one, which is from 1995. Yeah, 1995, St Albans Station, 4:45 in the afternoon. You can see the artist's impression of the individual there. Again, I'm picking up mainly around the tattoo on the right arm. And it's a poor quality tattoo there, but two swallows up and down, and then a banner in between, which would have said Maria or Marine on it. And again, I'm asking for anyone who knew anyone who had that tattoo, or maybe you were that Maria or Marine, and you can come forward for a name. You know, 1995, it'd be really good to put a name to this individual. And finally, from 1993, this case is... Yeah, no tattoos on this one, but Canley in Coventry, male, 25 to 35 years old, of large build, who's wearing a light blue polo shirt. This seems like an accident. He was on a steep embankment and was probably going to the toilet and has slipped down onto the railway track. Again, you know, 1993, do you remember someone around that time you didn't see before? Again, we really do want a name. Come to my detectives at BTP or www.mip.police.uk and have a look at our appeals. Sam, thanks so much for coming in and telling us more. So if you do know any of these men, and if you can help give them their identities back, then please do get in touch using the MIP website. The details are below. First this morning, it's another cold case that we want to shine a light on and to try and help police solve. It's about the murder of 13-year-old Lindsay Reimer.
I've missed out on watching her grow up, watching her develop. Still part of this family. And always will be.
Lindsay Reimer was a 13-year-old schoolgirl from Hebden Bridge, West Yorkshire.
She was such a sweet little thing. She was just a delightful child, and that continued with her growing up. She was funny. She was really funny. Very caring and very loving. She loved school. She was a bit of a star in the class, I think. You know, everybody seemed to like her. We weren't well off, so she found herself a paper round. It gave her a little bit of independence. You know, she had her own money and she'd save it up. She liked clothes. She liked to be stylish in her own way.
On the evening of Monday, the 7th of November 1994, Lindsay was at home with her dad and her baby sister, while Mum Jerry popped out with a friend.
I'd gone to the trades club in Hebden Bridge, and she suddenly appeared in there. It was 10:10, and my first words were, what are you doing here? And she said, we'd run out of cornflakes. So I gave her £1.20 to get a small box. She was just going to go and get these cornflakes and go home. And I think my last words to her would be, make sure you go straight home.
At 10:20, Lindsay was seen on CCTV at the local Spar store on Crown Street, just a 3-minute walk from the Trades Club. She bought the cornflakes, and then 20 minutes later, she was seen near a bus stop close to the entrance to Memorial Gardens. That was the last time she was seen alive.
I left the Trades Club at about 11:45 because I felt an incredible unease, unexplainable. So when I got in, I just presumed she'd gone up to her room. And maybe I should have gone and checked. But I didn't.
The next morning, Jerry had a call saying Lindsay hadn't shown up for her paper round.
The phone rang, and it was the news agent. I said, oh, she'll be on her way. Must be on her way, running a bit late. And then he rang again. And I thought, this is weird. So I went into the kitchen, and her school money was still on the table. The newspaper bag was still on the chair. Then I run up the stairs, and it was obvious the bed hadn't been slept in. And I said, ring the police. There's something not right here, ring the police. And that's when everything went mad. Everything went mad.
Police launched a missing persons inquiry.
The police investigation is becoming more desperate with each hour that Lindsay remains missing and with no sightings of her reported.
And hundreds of locals helped search the areas surrounding Hebden Bridge.
It was a feeling of absolute dread because I knew she wasn't the sort of girl to stay away from home or to go like that without telling us. Then detectives come in every hour. It was just crazy. And it just didn't seem real, you know. As the days went by, I just got this overwhelming feeling that she was dead.
5 months after her disappearance, on the 12th of April 1995, Lindsay's body was found by workmen in the Rochdale Canal at Rawdon Mill Lock, 1.5 miles from her family home. She was fully dressed in the clothes she had disappeared in. In her pocket was the loose change from the cornflakes she had bought.
It was devastating. There's not a day goes by that she isn't mentioned or thought about. And it's carried on. And it's even, you know, my grandchildren are affected by what happened to Lindsay. She's not... I just wish we could get to the end of it. Not really, it won't bring her back. Oh, I wish I could turn back the clock, but I can't.
Lindsay's sister Juliet was just 1 at the time of her murder.
So we have got a memory box that we've got quite a few of them actually. I don't think until last year that I put myself in a position to learn more about her. And in these boxes there are really lovely letters between her and her best friend. So we really got to learn about what she was like. It was heartbreaking looking through these items that she had touched. Like a paper round bag. And I didn't think that that would kind of hit me so hard, but just like seeing the things that she would wear on a daily basis kind of made it more real, made her more real. Yeah. I think as I've got older, it's really kind of struck home that something's missing and someone is missing. I wish that she'd been around to, like, Christmas, to have dinner together, to play stupid games and just be silly, to go on walks with. Oh, God, yeah. There's so many wishes of what she could have been in my life.
The need to find answers to what happened to Lindsay is as powerful as ever.
If someone came forward with that last piece of information that would complete the case to bring justice to Lindsay, the relief that I would feel for my parents to know that they got the answers that they needed before it's too late for them.
Well, I'm now with DCI James Entwistle from West Yorkshire Police. Thanks for coming in today, James. It's a huge case. It made national headlines. But can you just remind us of the last known movements of Lindsay?
Of course. So, as we've heard, Lindsay lived with her family on Cambridge Street in Hebden Bridge. On the night in question, you can see on the map, she moves from her home address. She goes to the Trades Club, where she speaks to Jerry. She takes the pound and she goes up to Crown Street. That's where the spa is, where she was going for those cornflakes. Now, we've seen the CCTV from within Crown Street. That's the only known CCTV of Lindsay on that night. She buys the cornflakes, and this is about 20 past 10. She leaves at about 22 minutes past 10 that night. There's then another sighting about 20 minutes later near the junction with Memorial Gardens, again marked on the map, and that is the last known sighting of Lindsay about 11:15 that night.
Last sighting there. I mean, that initial search, it was huge, wasn't it?
It was enormous. It's one of the biggest missing person searches that's ever been undertaken by West Yorkshire Police, probably in the UK. Involved people from the community, people from Calder Valley Search and Rescue, and the underwater search teams were out, pupils from the local school. It was enormous, and yet no trace was found.
And then it was 5 months later that her body was discovered. Do you have any idea what happened to her?
That's right. 5 months later, her body is sadly found in the Rochdale Canal by workers there. The post-mortem indicates that she's likely been strangled. What we know is she was weighed down with a boulder in excess of 20 pounds in weight, probably taken from the towpath next to where she was found.
And this is it here. She was found. It was probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles from where she was living. It wasn't far, but we do need some answers there. It's still a huge and tragic mystery as to what did happen to her. Who do you need to hear from today?
So my appeal today is threefold. So firstly, were you in Hessen Bridge at or around that night? Did you see something or hear something or know something about that night? Maybe you think that it's too late to ring us, but maybe loyalties have changed over the years. It's not too late. Now's the time to ring us. Secondly then, were you a professional in or around that area about 30 years ago or since then? Have you always had a suspicion about someone because of something they've said or something they did? You've always wondered, now's the time to ring us. And thirdly, have you had this on your conscience for 30 years? Do you know exactly what happened to Lindsay? Because you were there. Now's the time. Now's the time to ring us and help bring closure to Lindsay's family.
And that closure could be so important to a family that's in such pain. James, thank you. Please do get in touch if you have any information to share. Remember, our number to call is 08000 468 999, and all the other ways to contact us are also on screen, and they're just down at the bottom by the clock. She's a familiar face to us here on the programme, but sadly she is back with us looking for a suspect wanted in connection with the rape of a vulnerable woman in Enfield. Pembe, thanks for coming in today. What can you tell us about this horrendous-sounding crime?
So this incident took place on Friday the 18th of October 2024, Enfield area, around 3:30 in the afternoon. The victim, who's a 24-year-old female, considered extremely vulnerable due to her mental health, was known to be wandering the streets that day and the previous day, and she's clearly visibly very unwell as members of the public were trying to help her. So on that occasion, she was walking along the street when the suspect has approached her. He was cycling on a bike with no seat. He's then led her to a block of flats close by, and it was here that he's then gone on to rape her. After the assault, members of the public have then come to her aid again, and she ended up going to hospital.
Absolutely horrendous. Well, let's take a closer look at where this took place. As you say, this is Enfield, this is North London, and this particular area here. Just talk us through this, Pembe.
So the victim has walked from Wharf Road over Ponders End Bridge, where the train station is, onto South Street, turned right onto Scotland Green Road, and it was here that the suspect has approached her. He's then led her into a squat within a block of flats close by, left her for a short period, and then when he returned, he has then proceeded to rape her. After the rape, he has then walked her back along Scotland Green Road to the junction of South Street, where he's left her. And again, members of the public have called an ambulance for her because she was clearly very distressed.
Absolutely horrific. When actually an image we can see now of the flats we've just highlighted in the bottom right. This is the one where the incident took place. Now, as part of this investigation, you've got some CCTV, which we're going to see now. Just talk us through what we can see here, Pembe, talking with what's on the bottom left of the screen.
So the victim is on the bottom left. It's now 3:15, and this was just before the victim was approached by the suspect. Now, when the suspect left the victim in the squat, he cycled to Greg's, which is on South Street close by. It's only 2 minutes away. He then goes into Greg's, and we get a really clear image of the suspect here, where he goes inside and steals some items.
And this is what we can see here. So he's gone straight inside the bakery on that bike with no saddle, and he goes straight up to the fridge, selects some items we can see here. And after selecting these items, he just makes his way out, does he, Pembe?
He does. So this is now 3:37. He's left her in the squat, he's gone to Greg's and then gone into the...
So he's just taken those items and walked straight out. But what it does give us, as you say, a really clear image of him. And this is what we've got here from inside that bakery. So just talk us through the description that we have of this man that we need to find.
Yeah, so he's described as late 40s, dark hair, dark eyes, thin lips and deep wrinkles. He is possibly of a Turkish or Arabic background, and he was speaking in a foreign language, very short in height, wearing a black zip fleece with white writing on the front, and notably, as we mentioned before, he was cycling on a bike with no seat. Police do believe him to be local, and he may well have been living in the squat at the time.
OK, well, clearly the person responsible for this offence does need to be found. How can the public help you today?
I'm appealing to your viewers, as always, to cast their minds back to the 18th of October 24. We know he was in Greg's at 3:37 on South Street. Did you see him then? Is he someone you've seen in the area cycling around on a bike with no seat? He's quite distinctive. He's very small. You may have encountered him just through being in the area. But anyone who believes they know him, he may live in the squat. Just come forward. Any information we'd welcome.
You need that information, Pembe. Thank you. Well, as expected, It has had a huge impact on the victim, who has said to us that she actually feels scared of men after this. And she says, it's turned into a physical anxiety that gets triggered whenever men are in front of me. I haven't been able to do things I usually enjoy, like reading a book or studying. I feel a lot of guilt and shame, and my anger is turning into sadness. I get frustrated with myself because I feel like I should be better. Then I get depressed again. I mean, it's just so sad hearing such powerful words there, Pembe. But if anyone else is out there and they are suffering from an equally horrific crime like this, what advice have you got for them?
Firstly, I'd like to say any victim of this type of crime, I'd like them to know that it's not their fault. And please don't be afraid to come forward and speak to the police or any professionals that can help you. Ultimately, if you do go to the police, you will be assigned your specialist officers who will see you and support you throughout the duration of the investigation. But you can also go to sexual assault referral clinics. They're dotted around the country. You can find a list of them on the NHS website. And what they'll do is they'll forensically and medically examine you. They'll also support you with your mental health, as they're a really good place to go if you are this type of victim. But also, a number of charities, go online, there's a list of them there. But if you are comfortable to speak to the police, call 101, go to your GP if need be, or A&E. But the help is out there, and please don't feel afraid to come forward.
I think that is so important to know that that help is out there, and those referral centres, you can self-refer. You don't even need to go to the police, and a lot of people might not be aware of that, Pembe. Thank you so much for that advice. Have another look at this image, though. If you recognise this man, do get in touch. Any information could be vital, so please do share it. All of our contact details are on the screen, right down by the clock. Before that, in 1994, 31-year-old mum Shona Stevens took a lunchtime walk, only to be brutally attacked just 200 metres from her door. For the first time, Shona's daughter has opened up about the horrific attack against her mum.
I was 7 years old when I lost my mum. She was my inspiration. Every moment I got to spend with her, I cherished. I only wish that I could have known her as an adult. I've tried to follow her ideals. You know, she was incredibly bright, academic, multi-talented, and just such a beautiful person. She had a natural grace about her because she took such diligent care in everything she did. I just hope she would be proud of her. She's here today.
So it's drafts, is it? I got bored of Snakes and Ladders.
Shona was my mum. She was an academic, she was studious. We used to watch films together, we drew, and I used to watch her studying. Yeah, she encapsulates everything that I do.
If I saw things from Richard's point of view,
When it came to bedtime, she would sit by my bedside and read me bedtime stories. And we practiced reading together.
Candace showed me the new book she brought.
Gran and my mum were incredibly close. They had a mother-daughter bond that was unbreakable. I just remember in the household, you know, we were always laughing, having jokes, you know, dancing up and down the hallway, and it was just such a loving household. I was happy. That was how it was. After losing my mum, my gran tried her utmost to raise me in as normal environment as possible. I want people to see me, not for the tragedy that happened. I want to be known for my own merits, not just, you know, sympathy.
On Thursday, the 10th of November, 1994, Shona Stevens was murdered metres from her home in Irvine, North Ayrshire. The person responsible has never been found. D.I. Gillies took over the case in January 2024.
Shona Stevens was a 31-year-old mother who left her home about 12:30 in the afternoon to take a walk to the local shops in Alder Green in the Birchie Hill area of Irvine. A walk that she would take every single day. Birchie Hill Park was a thoroughfare. A lot of people from the local housing estates would use it as a footpath or a cycle pathway from one part of the town to the other, particularly towards the local shops. Irvine was a relatively new town. 30 years ago, it was an area that was undergoing some expansion with new housing estates and the like. The morning of the 10th of November 1994 was a morning like every other for Shona and her mother. They were home together and Shona had to take a walk to the shops.
I'm going to the shops. Do you want anything?
It was only a short distance. It was approximately about an 8 to 10 minute walk through the park. The route that Shona would have taken would have been to exit her garden through a back gate onto a footpath, which have ultimately taken her through the park in the direction of the Birchie Hill shops, coming out at Towerlands Farm Road. Given the time of day, between 12 and 1 o'clock and shortly thereafter, that there would have been people that were out walking their dogs, socialising, taking their lunch breaks. She was in the shopping precinct just before 1 o'clock. She was seen re-entering the park just after 1 o'clock. She was attacked by an unknown person, during the course of which she sustained serious head injuries, understood to be caused by blunt force trauma to the head. She was discovered at 20 minutes past 1 by members of the public. She was visible from the pathway, which is what drew their attention towards her and ultimately summoning the police and first aid. Where Shona was discovered was only 200 or 300 yards from her home address. She was nearly home. I would have expected people in the immediate vicinity, whether in the park or the houses nearby, to have been aware that a disturbance had taken place. However, they may have not linked it to an attack on Shona at the time, but they may subsequently reflect on that.
Shona Stevens was airlifted to Southern General Hospital in Glasgow, where she was treated for severe head wounds. Despite doctors' best efforts, Shona Stevens never regained consciousness.
When she passed away, it was really quite a blur for me, because I was used to seeing her every day, and then all of a sudden I was taken aside and told, "Oh, your mum's in a hospital. She's not well." And I was like, "Oh, can I go see her?" And I was told no, probably best. So I used to make her handmade cards for the 3 days that she was in hospital, until the Sunday, on Remembrance Sunday in 1994, when they decided to turn her life support off. And when I saw her coffin at the age of 7 years old, that's when it hit me that she was gone.
Police still haven't established a motive for her murder.
The investigation would have focused on gaining an understanding of who uses that park, who frequents the local area, speaking to people in the local community who may or may not be involved in criminality, and building an investigative strategy around those criteria. There's been a number of people whose identity we've appealed to the public for, and that we've subsequently identified them as part of this investigation. There's always a possibility that there are further witnesses that haven't been identified or for whatever reason come forward. 30 years have passed, and I am confident that there are answers in the community. An attack of this type, particularly when we can't yet establish a motive, so whether it's 1994 or 2025, the manner of this incident is shocking, and it continues to be investigated as a priority.
There have been numerous appeals to the public over the years. In 1995, police sought Crimewatch's help.
The attack on Shona still has too many elements of mystery, and hence tonight this nationwide appeal.
30 years on, and Shona's killer has never been found.
Losing my mum has impacted every facet of my life. And to anyone that's got any information about Shona's case, please, please share whatever you know with the police. Any little bit of information, however insignificant you may think it may be, please share it. It's been 30 years. My mum deserves justice. My gran is 90 years old. She deserves justice. And so do I. Yeah.
It's truly heartbreaking. I'm joined now by DI Stuart Gillies, who you saw in the film there from Police Scotland's major investigation team, to discuss further. Stuart, thanks so much for coming in this morning. Shona's daughter speaking in the film, that is the first time that she's felt able to bravely speak about her mum. She didn't want to be fully identified in the film, but you can really tell the impact that this has had on her and the rest of the family.
Absolutely. I commend her bravery. It's had a devastating impact on Shona's family and the local community, and that's why I'm here today, to try and get answers.
And you want to make absolutely clear that this is still very much an active murder case, isn't it?
Yes, this is an unresolved homicide, and I'm here today to appeal to the community for their help in drawing it to a conclusion. I've spoken to people in the community who are under the impression that it has been solved, and I'm here to say it hasn't. So if you have information, come forward and help us.
Shona's daughter spoke so beautifully about her mum in the film. You could tell that they were extremely close. What more can you tell us, Stuart, about Shona?
Well, that's exactly it. She was a loving mother and a daughter. She was very close with her family, and there's a small group of friends. A very private person with a small social group, but ultimately a beloved mother and daughter.
And can you remind us what she was actually wearing on the day that she was attacked?
Of course. She was wearing a navy blue woolen jumper and a ankle-length brown skirt with black shoes.
Now, we've got a map that we can show here, Stuart, just to kind of give a bit more of an indication into Shona's movements that day. Talk us through it.
So this is Shona's home address at Alder Green, and as I mentioned in the VT, she exits her garden from a back fence and onto a path which she would then take towards the local shops. This is a route that she would take every day, and it would be frequented by people out walking their dogs or on their bikes or whatever, and would be directly through Burtree Hill Park to the local shop area.
And what time was it that she was last seen?
She left the house approximately 12:30 in the afternoon to go to the shops.
And last seen when, around?
She was last seen re-entering the park here at Towerlands Farm Road at just after 1 o'clock.
And the attack happened, as you say, just yards from a home address. Absolutely shocking. Who specifically would you like to hear from today?
I want to hear from anybody who's got any information that's ultimately going to help us advance this investigation. And we're desperate for answers for Shona's family and the community.
As we said, this is something that happened 30 years ago. People may have actually come forward at the time. You would still urge them to come forward again, though, wouldn't you?
Of course. My team are in the process of re-engaging with witnesses from the time, but if you have come forward and spoke to the police at that time, we may be able to speak to you again. When we would urge you, if you've thought about anything subsequently or had other conversations, please come forward, please share what you know, and please help us.
And there is a Crime Stoppers reward in connection.
Our partners at Crime Stoppers are offering £20,000 for information leading to a conviction that comes via Crime Stoppers. So for anybody who's not yet prepared to come forward to the police directly, I would urge you to consider that route as an alternative.
Stuart, thanks again for coming in and joining us this morning. If you do have any information at all relating to this case, then please do get in touch with us. All the ways to contact us are on the screen below.
Message, or of course you can email us. It's cwl@bbc.co.uk.
First this morning, 52-year-old Junior Nelson went missing in 2015. His remains were discovered 9 months later. But who killed him and why?
Junior was well known in the community. He was often seen out riding his bike. He lived in Kilburn for a very long time. It was very unusual for him to leave the area. He has a family, has a lot of friends, well liked in the community.
My dad, Junior, he was a funny person, got a big sense of humour and a very loving family member. He was into mechanics and electronics and a lot of things that made me probably the person I am today.
He was my only brother. He meant everything to me. I think about him almost every day. You could spend hours with him talking, and that was the beauty of being with Junior. He was never bored with his company. Some days I could see Junior once, maybe twice for the day, maybe sometimes 3 times for the day. And then he'll jump on his bike and he'd be off again, and then why not see him for another week or 2? That was Junior.
On the 19th of August 2015, he missed a scheduled appointment with his key worker. From there, he was noted as a missing person. Junior did have his own struggles and his own personal demons. He was a vulnerable person, but there was nothing that would suggest that at that time he had come to significant harm.
I got a call, my heart sort of just dropped a beat. It was like, well, okay, just give it a week or so. Maybe Junior's gone somewhere. The longer it went on, the more you just thought, no, there's something that was wrong. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, no. 2 months, no. You're trying to be positive, but something's not right now. But you just didn't know what it was.
As time goes on, I started to lose hope. I started to wonder the worst.
On the 14th of March 2016, 9 months after Junior was reported missing, human remains were discovered.
The remains were found in the undergrowth round about the train tracks in Northolt, just behind Rabbermead Drive, which is northwest London. Those remains that have been left in place for quite a while get sent off for a special post-mortem, and from there we were able to identify that the remains in question were that of Junior Nelson. When we take into account the location he was found, the condition he was found, that's when it was concluded that this is no longer a missing person but a murder investigation.
For me, it's a shock to the system. Nothing will ever make me forget what that time finding out was like.
You're never prepared for it at the end of the day. It was so devastating that I ended up crying and everything. And I'm still crying.
Something we haven't had in this investigation, which we normally have, is CCTV. Due to the amount of time between Junior's disappearance and when he was discovered, that is something that we would normally rely on quite heavily. Speaking to people in the local area, seeing what they remember, what they've seen, anything that could direct us in an investigation. While that's going on, there will be inquiries around his phone, his direction of travel, his lifestyle.
The police believe Junior was abducted and murdered on Saturday, 15th of August, 2015.
Junior spent most of that day at his home address in the Aldershot Road area in Kilburn, before some point in the evening travelling out of Kilburn and towards Wembley. From what we know about Junior, that would have been a very unusual journey for him to make. It was very unusual for him to leave the area. The last known activity on his mobile phone was at 10 o'clock at night. That was the last anybody heard from him, or the last his phone seems to have been used. Junior was known to the police. He was a vulnerable person, well known in the local community, and we believe that it was him being vulnerable that led to him being taken advantage of and exploited by people involved with drug dealing in the community. We are keeping an open mind, but ultimately we need people to come forward and tell us more about Junior as a person, who he was speaking to, what his day-to-day activities were, what his lifestyle was like, who he was interacting with, were there any disputes that may have triggered a sequence of events that have led to this.
9 years on, we're no nearer to know what's happened.
What's hard to deal with is not knowing what happened to him, but at the same time, it's always just overcrowded by the fact that he's not coming back.
The person or persons responsible for this are still out there. They are still walking the streets. They're clearly capable and willing to use extreme violence, and somebody like that is very dangerous.
He means the world to me, and it's hard to picture bouncing back from what's happened.
Since Junior's been gone, there's a part of my heart that's never been the same.
Well, DC Ian McDonald from the Met Police joins me now. Thanks so much for coming into the studio this morning. Just an incredibly upsetting situation for Junior's family. Can we start by you just reminding us of the key locations in connection with this case?
Yes, so Junior was reported missing initially in August 2015, and it wasn't until the 13th of March 2016 where human remains were found just off Raeburmead Drive in Northolt, which is in northwest London. Junior was well known in his local community of Kilburn. He was frequently out and about on his bike, visiting local shops, local businesses, and was generally just a very familiar face in the community.
Yeah, and as we heard in the film, it was 9 months, wasn't it, from when Junior was killed to when his body was discovered in a London park, which is quite a lengthy amount of time. Do you believe that the body was in the same location the whole time, or that it could have been moved, perhaps?
It's hard to say. Where the body was found was very deep in the undergrowth. It'd be highly unusual under normal circumstances for someone to place themselves there.
Yeah.
It's far more likely that he has come to harm and then been left right there.
And the manner in which Junior's remains were found was actually quite distressing, wasn't it?
Yes, sadly it was two local children playing in the area who came across Junior. They were playing in, where you see here, playing in just in the general area. They eventually made their way through the fence and towards the railway tracks, and at that point they've come across a human skeleton, and being just young kids, it's been quite a traumatic experience for them. They've run home, reported it and raised the alarm. At that point, it's been referred to the Met's Homicide Command, and then following forensic analysis of the remains, they've been identified as belonging to Junior Nelson, and from there it's been classified as a murder investigation.
Ian, what's your hypothesis on the cause of death? Because there were no significant injuries to the body, were there?
No, not in this case. Because of how long Junior had been there, there was no soft tissue left. 9 months is a long time. So at this time, we're unable to say exactly how he died.
We also heard in the film that Junior was seen as a vulnerable person. Why was that?
Yes, he was vulnerable and he was known to police. He had been involved in some low-level offences, and we believe that it was his vulnerability, and he did suffer from a drugs addiction that led to him being taken advantage of by people in the area, which has ultimately led to him being targeted and killed.
Yeah, and regardless of that, he didn't deserve to meet such an awful death. For the viewers that are watching this morning, how can they help with this appeal?
So we would like to hear from anyone who knew Junior, anyone who was aware of what he was doing at the time on the run-up to his disappearance and after his disappearance, anyone who has any information about any of that. And, well, ultimately, a long time has gone by since this happened, and people's allegiances do change for whatever reason. If someone out there was too scared to speak to police for whatever reason at the time, but now feels they're in a position to come forward.
Yes.
Those are the people we need to hear from, because ultimately we are going to need their help.
Absolutely, now is the time. And finally, there is a Crime Stoppers reward in connection to this case, isn't there?
That's right, Crime Stoppers have just announced a £20,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for the death of Junior Nelson.
Ian, thanks so much for joining us and telling us more about this. If you do have any information at all regarding this case, all the ways to get in touch are below on the screen by the clock.
Or email us at cwl@bbc.co.uk.
To mark our 40th anniversary on the BBC, we've decided to focus on some of the high-profile, unsolved cold cases that we've appealed about on Crimewatch over the years. Yesterday, Police Scotland asked for information about the murder of Shona Stevens, who was killed in Irvine 30 years ago. Today, we're in Manchester to remember the murder of Lisa Hessen in a case that still haunts the community she lived in.
This case has remained with me for 40 years. There's just a handful that you never forget, and this is one of those. People still are searching for answers. People who knew Lisa and still live in the community.
Neil Keeling is a journalist with 40 years' experience covering stories in and around Greater Manchester. In 1984, Neil was a junior reporter at the start of his career.
I'd been at the Bolton Evening News for about a year, covering all types of stories, such as armed robberies, shotguns being used, but never a murder.
All that changed on the morning of the 10th of December, 1984, when Neil received a call.
The phone went at 8 a.m. and it was my news editor. He told me to drive directly to Lee Police Station for a press conference in connection with the murder of a 14-year-old girl at the weekend. She'd been found in an alleyway close to where she lived. My heart was thumping. I was only 25 years old myself. It was the biggest story in terms of crime that I had ever covered.
The victim was 14-year-old schoolgirl Lisa Hessen, who lived in Lee, Greater Manchester.
She was a pupil at Bedford High School. She was described by her mum, Christine, as a kind and loving kid. She was Christine's only child. Lisa was extremely popular at school, had many friends, and was well liked. At the time, she was going out with a 15-year-old boy. They'd been going out for a while.
Lisa and her mum, Christine, shared their home on Bonnywell Road with Lisa's grandmother.
The estate where Lisa lived was a close-knit community. Everybody seemed to know each other. It was a safe place to live, parks for kids to play in. It was just a normal place.
Hi, Mum, I'm back.
On the 8th of December 1984, Lisa wanted to join a group of friends at a house 2 miles from her home.
Her mother agreed that she could go on condition that she was back by 10:30 in the evening. Her reward for getting back on time was to be that she could go to the school disco, which was scheduled to take place on the Monday. She got an umbrella, she was wearing a white skirt, white boots, and a blue coat, and set off for the gathering, which was on Lee Road. At the gathering, there were 5 boys and Lisa. One of the boys was her boyfriend, and the others were friends of both of them. Witnesses said that she left the gathering at 10:15, saying goodbye to her boyfriend. Lisa was known to be extremely punctual, so when she didn't turn up at 10:30, her mum, Christine, became anxious, and at 10:45, she went out to look for her, but could see no sign of her. Christine realised almost immediately that something was wrong. She then went out at 11:15 to try and find her for a second time, following the same route, without success. When she came back, she contacted Lee Infirmary to see if Lisa had been brought in and was told no. She then went out for a third time to look for her. When she came back, she reported Lisa missing to the police. I remember she said later that she stood on the street waiting for Lisa's white boots to appear, and they never did.
At 11:55 p.m, a passerby found Lisa's body in an alleyway behind Rugby Road, and police were alerted.
There was a black bruise to her neck and bruising to her face. Police later confirmed that she'd been the victim of a sexual assault. She was found 200 yards from her front door, a minute away from her home. On that night, Lisa's mum walked past the entrance to the alley 3 times and would later agonise about that fact and whether if she'd gone up the alley and found her, things might have been different.
Two days after Lisa's body was discovered, police held the press conference Neil covered.
I think the mood in the community was deep sadness, really, and empathy with Lisa's mum. I remember walking along Bonnywell Road, and it was a tradition at the time that if something of this magnitude and sadness happened, curtains in neighbours' homes were drawn, and I remember noticing that.
Information given at a subsequent police press conference heightened local fears.
Police revealed that in the 3 to 4 months before her murder, there had been 3 other attacks on young women, all within 1 mile of where Lisa was killed. One of those occurred the night before Lisa was murdered. The police told us that the culprit was good-looking, in his 20s, and had been wearing jogging gear.
During his time reporting on the case, Neil interviewed one of the women targeted by the attacker.
She explained to me that the lad had threatened to kill her, which is what he did in all 4 incidents. The woman I spoke to was able to get away because she engaged him in conversation. He told her that he'd not been able to get a girlfriend, and this is why he was behaving in such a way.
Neil was also tasked with trying to interview Christine Hessen, Lisa's mother.
In those days, in 1984, journalistic ethics were not the same as they are now. And I was sent to knock on Christine Hessen's door 3 times to ask if she would give me an interview. Each time she came to the door herself, and she explained to me that she understood that I had a job to do, and she understood why I was there, but she was not ready to speak. And yet she remained civil, even friendly, despite me knocking on her door.
In time, Christine Hessen was able to speak about Lisa's murder, and in 2005, she appeared on Crimewatch, appealing for the public's help in catching her daughter's killer.
It's always there at the back of your mind, knowing that nobody's paying for what's happened to your child. They may be married or have children of their own and living a good life. I don't know. But they've not paid for what they've done, have they? And if no one comes forward, they never will.
Now, more than 40 years on from Lisa's death, Neil, like others in the community, is hoping for answers.
I do find it incredible from all the cases that I've covered over the years that this was never solved. And 40 years on, I still remember the case vividly. It's remained with me because I'm now a dad and I've got 2 daughters. I've gone over in my own mind, how on earth can you live with such a loss? It's haunted me for all of my life. Lisa was Christine's only child. She continued to campaign to try and find the truth, to try and get justice. And sadly, she died in 2016 without getting that.
It really is such an awful tragedy, and I'm joined now by Martin Bottomley, who heads up the cold case unit at Greater Manchester Police. Martin, thank you for joining us once again today. Can you just remind us of Lisa's movements that day?
Yes, Lisa lived on Bonwell Road in Lee with her mum, and she'd agreed that she could go to a party in Lee Road at her friend's as long as she was home by 10:30. And Lisa was always punctual, so she went to the party, and at 10:15 she said goodbye to her friends and her boyfriend and started the walk home. But she didn't arrive home at 10:30, and by 11:15 Mum got really worried for her. She went out looking for her, didn't find her obviously, and then called the police.
OK, and we saw there that her body was found, and it was very close to her home. Just really close, just round the corner. We can see here on the map just how close it was, just by Rugby Road there. What was the cause of her death, do we know?
Well, as you say, she was found 200 metres from home in an alleyway off Rugby Road. And there's signs that she'd been sexually assaulted and strangled. And the tragedy is that when her mum was out looking for her, she would have walked past that alleyway on Rugby Road several times while she was looking for her.
It's just so sad to think that's happened at all. So, Martin, how has the investigation unfolded over all these years?
Well, the initial investigation was huge. 3,000 people were spoken to, and there was a DNA profile obtained. Now, that profile, of course, could eliminate anybody who's innocent, but it could also lead to the arrest and conviction of the killer to bring closure to this case.
But even after all this time, you still want to appeal for witnesses to come forward?
Yeah, it's 40 years ago, but that doesn't matter. We never close the case, and I'm sure that somebody will remember something or would have known something at the time, that vital piece of information or a name that could give us an answer to bring justice to Lisa and her family and friends. And she's still remembered and mourned by the community. There was a vigil for her in December when well over 100 people attended that vigil.
Any piece of information could be the vital missing piece of the jigsaw, Martin. If anyone's withholding it and they need that further incentive to come forward, there is a financial reward as well.
There is. There's still a £50,000 reward outstanding for the information leading to the arrest and conviction of Lisa's killer, and we need that name.
We certainly do, Martin. Thank you. 40 years this murderer has walked free, thinking they've gotten away with it. If you have any information to share, contact us on 08000 468 999. All the other ways to get in touch are on the screen down by the clock, and they will be throughout the show.
Now for our next appeal, we have a plea from the mother of Robert Williams, who went missing when he was just 15 years old.
Robert was a character. He always made you laugh. He lived for his sport. He was never without a ball, a rugby ball or a football. He just loved everything there was about it.
23 years ago, 15-year-old Robert Williams left his home in Resolven in the Vale of Neath.
On the morning of Friday, the 22nd of March 2002, Robert and his mother Cheryl had a disagreement, and at approximately 9:30 a.m. that morning is when he left the home address.
Robert's mother Cheryl never saw him again.
The first night he was missing, I went looking around the streets for him. But then as the days were rolling on, I knew something was wrong.
When he didn't return home after 24 hours, Cheryl reported her son missing. And police were able to determine where Robert had spent the previous night.
We believe that he stayed at an address in the Clyne area that night, 2 to 3 miles south of Resolven. and he would have easily have walked to that village.
Police inquiries later established he moved on from there the next day.
So on Saturday, the 23rd of March 2002, Robert and other teenage boys walked from Clyne to Tonner. They purchased some alcohol in Tonner and then made their way to Aberdillais, which is only a short walk away, where a house party then took place. Robert would know people and teenagers in that village because the comprehensive school he went to is in that area. It was quite regular for parties to take place at this particular address where alcohol was being drunk, and local teenagers were known to frequent it on a regular basis. There were at least 5 other teenagers at the address that night. There were 1 or 2 adults as well, and there were some teenagers that would come and go. At that time, if there was a party going on in the area, then quickly other teenagers would attend.
Witnesses confirmed Robert was at the house party until 4 or 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th of March.
When he left that address, witnesses say that he was intoxicated as a result of drink.
This was the last confirmed sighting of Robert.
We can't be 100% certain what happened to him after he left that address. Did he have some kind of medical episode or medical incident? Did he suffer an accident in some way?
1 week after Robert was reported missing, police were alerted to some potential evidence.
On the 1st of April 2002, a trainer was found in a muddy riverbank near Clyne, and his mother identified that as being very similar to a pair of shoes that he owned. In March of 2002, there had been a substantial amount of rain, and therefore the rivers were fast-flowing and high. You know, if Robert had slipped and fallen in, then it would have been highly unlikely that he had been able to get out.
But this is just one hypothesis, and they haven't been able to establish if that is what happened to Robert. In 2021, police turned to Crimewatch.
I know the public still has information that they can provide to me so I can help find out what happened to Robert, where he is now, and return him to the family.
The appeal resulted in an arrest, but no charges. After all this time, Robert's family need closure.
I still got to look out the window. It's like a comfort thing to me. Every night I still look. In the morning I look. It's just something that I just feel I have to do. We know Robert's no longer here anymore. And we accept that. We have no choice. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And I know somebody out there knows something. Somebody was the last person to see my son alive. So all we want as a family is to fetch him home. And I want to lay my son to rest, like any other parent would, where you have somewhere to go to grieve. And you know where they are. You know, the slightest thing that you might think that's not important might be really important to us. And I just ask him, please, to come forward. Please, just help me to fetch my son home and give him the burial that he deserves.
Really heartbreaking. I'm joined now by DI David Butt from South Wales Police Major Crime Investigations team. David, thanks for being with us this morning. I know you were due to be in studio, but you've been called away on an urgent investigation, so thanks for taking the time to speak to us today. We know you were on Crimewatch Live back in 2021 to talk about this appeal. Did anything come from that?
Yes, good morning. So as a result of making the appeal back in 2021,
we were provided with some crucial information that allowed us to arrest an individual. However, there was insufficient evidence to charge that individual with any offences linked to Robert's disappearance.
And we know that Robert was only 15 when he went missing. Can you remind us of his movements in the lead up to that point?
So in March 2002, Robert lived with his mother and his brother in the village of Resolver, which is about 8 miles north of the town of Neath in South Wales. On the morning of Friday, the 22nd of March 2002, at around 9:30 a.m., he had a disagreement with his mother, and as a result of which he left the home address. And we know that later that evening, or later that day rather, he went to the village of Clyne, which is a short walk away, and he stayed at an address in that village on the Friday night. And then on the Saturday, he either walked or potentially took a bus with a number of other teenage youths to Tonna, where they purchased alcohol before walking a short distance to the neighbouring village of Aberdellais, to the party that I referred to.
And David, in the weeks after Robert's disappearance, there was a shoe found, wasn't there, on the bank of the River Neath. Has that helped with your investigations at all?
That's correct. So the shoe was located on the banks of the River Neath, close to the village of Clyne. It was identified by Robert's mother as being likely to have been worn or owned by Robert. That area was searched, but sadly that we didn't find anything further, and that aspect of the investigation didn't take us any further. However, we'd had a substantial amount of rain around that time when Robert was last seen, and if Robert had fallen into the River Neath, which was high and fast flowing at that time, it's highly likely he would have struggled to get out of the river, which ends up flowing into Swansea Bay and into the sea.
So you're still looking for information. You're desperate to provide answers for Robert's family. Who in particular would you like to hear from today?
Well, I'd like to hear from anybody that was present at the party that took place on Saturday, the 23rd of March 2002, into the following day, the Sunday, where Robert was present. And I'd like to appeal to anyone who may have information in relation to Robert's whereabouts, whether he's alive or dead, because the last 23 years have been a nightmare for his family, and they deserve answers, and the community of Resolvent deserve answers. And the intention of myself and the investigation team is to find him and return him to his family as soon as possible.
David, thanks again for taking the time for being with us this morning. So if you think you might know something about the disappearance of Robert Williams, the number to call is 08000 468 999. That number is free from landlines and mobile phones. An emotional watch, but what an incredibly brave officer PC Ashley is. Now it's a case many of our viewers may be familiar with, particularly those in Northern Ireland. It's about the disappearance of 25-year-old Lisa Dorrian, who was last seen at a caravan park in Ballyhalbert, County Down, in February 2005. In a moment, I'll be speaking to the lead officer on the investigation, but before that, I'm with Joanne Dorrian, Lisa's sister, to hear a bit more about who Lisa was and what she was like. Joanne, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and speak to us this morning. I know how important it is to you and the whole family to have the opportunity to speak about Lisa and remember her. So let's start with that. Can you tell me more about your sister?
Yeah, Lisa was the eldest of 4 girls, with me being next in line. And just growing up, we absolutely idolised her. We used to borrow her clothes with or without permission. We used to listen to the same music that she listened to. We just really looked up to her. You know, we always wanted to go out with her when she was going out with her friends when she was younger. And she was 4 years older than me, but she was my idol. I mean, she absolutely was my idol. We were really close as sisters. We did everything together growing up. You know, we have hundreds and thousands of photographs of us on days out with our family. We were just a really normal, typical family. Lisa was a really loving person. You felt an energy from her when you were with her. You felt that you were loved and you were safe, and you know, she was just a really beautiful person to be around. She had a great sense of humour. She had a massive hearty laugh. You know, and those things are lovely to remember, but difficult, because you think, what if I forget that someday?
I'm sure.
What if you know, what if I forget what her voice sounded like? What if I, you know, we have so many great memories, but you know, we got to a point, you know, you look through these photographs here, that she was just a young, innocent girl who just lived for her family and friends. She had dreams, she had aspirations. She was a hairdresser, you know, she was super talented at that. And, you know, all that was stolen from her.
It's so incredibly sad, isn't it, Joanne? And can you tell me how you actually found out about Lisa's disappearance?
Yeah, so Lisa was living in a house in Bangor with her friend. They were renting a house, and she had been away for the weekend, actually, and had come back to the house and realised Lisa wasn't there. She tried to contact her on her mobile phone. She then started phoning round the people that she knew Lisa had been with and spent that weekend with, and nobody had seen her. So I got a call then, just after I finished work on the Tuesday after Lisa went missing, to say, Joanne, I can't find Lisa. And that was the moment where my world and our world was turned upside down forever.
Well, the impact that it's had and continues to have on your family must be seismic.
Yeah, this is lifelong, and this will always be, you know, absolute torture for us. We think about our lives now before Lisa went missing and after she went missing, because we're two different people, sets of people. We have, you know, changed as people, our lives have changed. It's cruel. It's cruel what this has caused and the ripple effect it's had on so many people. They talk about ambiguous loss, which is a loss with no end. And that's what this is. It's living in limbo. It's living in a place that you wouldn't wish your worst enemy to live in, because it's the most stressful thing you'll go through in your life.
Joanne, for people that are watching this morning, what would it mean for them to come forward with information?
It would be the best thing they could ever do for us. We've campaigned for 20 years. This has been all-consuming for our family. You know, my mum died 9 years ago, and she literally died from a broken heart. And I mean that, she really, really did. She couldn't live without Lisa. She couldn't live, you know, she couldn't find joy in life. It was gone. They stole her life too. But the people out there who could come forward and just ease this for us. You know, we'll never get over losing Lisa, but we have to find her. We have to do that for Lisa. And when you think back to that girl who had that beautiful big laugh and loved playing practical jokes and was a fabulous dancer, all these beautiful things about Lisa, who really was a really beautiful person, you know, they could just end this for us.
Honestly, Joanne, you speak so powerfully. I know how much it means to you and the family to get the answers. We can actually take a closer look now at Lisa's last known movements that day.
On the last weekend of February 2005, Lisa Dorrian spent time with new acquaintances, visiting various pubs, restaurants and houses in County Down, Northern Ireland. In the early hours of Sunday morning, at around 5 a.m, Lisa and some acquaintances attended a house party in Ballyhalbert. At 7:30 p.m, Lisa and 4 others went to a nearby caravan park. It's sited on an old RAF base on the east coast of Northern Ireland, about 1 minute's drive away from Ballyhalbert. On that Sunday, Lisa and her acquaintances spent time at other locations, travelling along the peninsula in a black Vauxhall Corsa. At around 10 p.m, a small group headed back to the caravan site. Lisa was then left alone in the caravan with one man. She was seen at around 1 a.m. and has not been seen since. Lisa has now been missing for 20 years.
Well, we're now joined by DCI Kerry Foreman from PSNI to hear about the investigation. Thank you for coming in, Kerry. And we should start with the fact that sadly you do believe that Lisa came to some harm that night.
Yes, we believe that Lisa was murdered either on the evening of Sunday the 27th of February or early hours of Monday the 28th of February 2005. We know that she had gone back to a caravan on Ballyhalbert caravan site with one other female and 3 males. We can say that Lisa was last sighted at the caravan at around 10 p.m. that night, and we believe that she was murdered in the hours following that.
In the film there, we saw a timeline of Lisa's last known movements. Are there any particular points that you'd like to draw attention to this morning?
Yes, so we know that Lisa was socialising throughout the Ards Peninsula area, around Bangor and the greater area throughout the course of that weekend. On the Friday evening, she had gone to the Lock and Key in Grimsport, and on the Saturday afternoon, she went to the saltwater break in Kirkcudbright. And we would appeal for anyone who may have seen Lisa in the area. She travelled in a number of vehicles over the course of that weekend. On the Sunday, she was out and about again, and as I say, we know that there were a group of them returned to the caravan site on the Sunday evening. So those are really key times for us, and we know that people will have seen Lisa, and it's our hope that their memories will be jogged. Anything that they remember about that weekend, no matter how insignificant, we would just appeal for them to come forward and help us to find the answers that the family so desperately deserve.
We've also got some CCTV that we can actually show of Lisa during the course of that weekend. Just talk us through what we're looking at here.
So we have CCTV that has now been digitised, and we have released for the first time. We see Lisa with a number of other persons, as I say, both in the saltwater break and in the Lock and Key. It was a busy weekend. We can see from the footage there were other people there at both those locations over the course of the weekend. So we believe that the answers around what happened to Lisa are out there in the community, that there are people watching this today who know how Lisa's life ended, and it's my hope that their memories will be jogged by this footage and that they will be encouraged to come forward and do the right thing.
We've also got a map here, Carrie, that just illustrates the area a bit more. Just talk us through this.
So you'll see from the map there's Bangor there at the top. That's where Lisa was living immediately before her disappearance. The Grimsport bar there, which would have been the Lock and Key at that time. And we see the saltwater break down in Kirkcudbright, and that's close to Ballyhalbert, where the caravan park, the caravan park where Lisa was last seen.
Now, there is a reward, isn't there, in connection to this case?
That's right. Crime Stoppers have offered an enhanced reward of £20,000 for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for Lisa's murder, but notably also for any information that leads to the recovery of her body. 20 years have now passed. Allegiances will have changed, people's circumstances will have changed. We know that the answers are out there within the community, and we would just appeal to people to come forward. There are anonymous ways in which they can share information for us, and they can assist us in bringing those responsible for Lisa's murder to justice.
And Joanne, just to give the final word to you, just listening to Kerry there, appealing for people to come forward, this means everything to you and your family, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely everything. This is, you know, the frustrating and cruel part of this 20-year journey that we've been on is this is not impossible to solve. Lisa is not impossible to find. You know, we know that somebody has this information, and whether that's, you know, partners of the suspects, people that have been in their life previously, who actually just see us appealing again today and say, enough is enough. I don't want to carry this myself. We will celebrate those people. You know, these people will be absolute heroes to us. They've lived with something that has weighed heavy on them, I'm sure of it. You know, they may not have been involved in the case at the time, they may not have been involved in Lisa's disappearance and murder, but they've heard something, or they've seen something, or they've been told something. And we're saying, just think about Lisa, poor Lisa, you know, and just come forward and tell us where she is.
Joanne, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the programme this morning. Such incredibly powerful words. Kerry, thank you so much to you too. We really do appreciate it. All the ways to get in touch are on the screen now, just down by the clock. On one of society's most vulnerable, a savage attack claimed the life of 87-year-old Eileen Blaine. This, of course, is a very moving film.
He just wouldn't stop hitting me, that was the main thing. Just asked him to stop, but he wouldn't. He just said he wanted gold all the time. But it was just a nightmare.
Family has always been at the heart of 87-year-old Eileen Blaine's life.
She enjoyed family coming round, she enjoyed seeing our children born, my children, my brother's children. Mum
would be the one that we turn to all the time.
For 63 years, she was happily married to husband Andrew until his death in 2003.
My dad was everything to my mum. It was very difficult when my father first passed away, but my mum being as she was, she became resilient, she got tough.
With her husband gone, Eileen treasured one item in particular which held special memories of him.
The wedding ring meant a great deal to my mum. She only has to look at it and it reminds her of my father and their life that they had together.
On Friday the 3rd of February 2017, Eileen went shopping at her local supermarket.
She was very fit and agile for her age. On a weekly basis, she'd get a little shopping trolley and go up to the shop at the top of the road.
CCTV from the supermarket shows her picking up her groceries.
You don't realise how independent she was. I mean, she used to get on buses and take the dog a walk. And at 87, when you think about it, you wouldn't think she'd be doing that, would you?
As she's coming home with the shopping, she thought she saw the window cleaner, so she gave him a little wave, came home.
After she unpacked her shopping, there was a knock at the back door.
Because she'd only just seen the window cleaner, she automatically thought he was coming to get paid.
But it wasn't him.
And that's when he punched her straight in the face. She didn't have time to do anything, and then he hit her again.
He was relentless, he would not stop. She's on the floor, and he then continued to kick her.
Eileen begged the man to stop, but he kept on, demanding gold and money.
Mum raised her hands like that to say, I've got no gold, I've got no money, and unfortunately he saw a wedding ring on her finger.
Ripping the wedding ring off her hand, he dragged Eileen into the living room, where he threw her Jack Russell Sammy into the wall.
At this point, he said to me, Mum, you're not getting out of here alive.
Eileen was trapped. But when her attacker went upstairs to search for more valuables, she seized her opportunity.
The first thing she could think of was pick the little dog up and run out the front door. And she ran straight to a neighbour's house.
They called the police, but Eileen's attacker fled before they arrived.
Well, she had bruises all over her face and her eyes and her nose.
It was only when she went to hospital and she had x-rays that they then found out she sustained 3 broken ribs and a broken vertebrae in the base of her spine where he'd been kicking her. After 5 weeks in hospital, she was then really turning the corner.
Despite her injuries, Eileen seemed to be making a good recovery.
She was looking forward to getting home, seeing a little dog.
And on the 31st of March 2017, doctors finally allowed her to go home.
All she dreamt about and really thought about was, I'll be going home tomorrow, I'll be going home tomorrow. So when she got told she could go out, she was absolutely happy.
But just a single day after her return home, Eileen passed away.
Well, I've lost my mum. I've lost a friend. I've lost everything. This burglar might think he's killed my mum, but he's killed us inside.
Started chucking me about and I couldn't get up and ask him to stop. He wouldn't. Yeah, it was quite nasty. He said we weren't going to get out, you see. He was going to make sure we didn't. But it was just a nightmare.
We've lost somebody to speak to, somebody to confide in. You can't quantify that.
I just hope that someone does catch him in the end, so that another family like ours doesn't go through this for the sake of 30 quid and a wedding ring. What a price to pay.
Well, I'm joined now by DI Paul Davis from Greater Manchester Police. Good to have you with us this morning, Paul. This is such a senseless, brutal attack. What more can you tell us about the investigation so far?
It is. We're treating it as a murder investigation. Eileen was 87 years of age, very active, very independent, and she was just going about her weekly shopping when she was then attacked in her own home.
It's shocking. It really, really is. We've actually got a map. Just explain what we're seeing here.
This is a local area of Stretford that covering the Barton Road is the main road through. You can see Eileen's address, and it's a very short distance to the local shop where she does shopping and then returns.
Yeah, just carrying out her usual routine.
Yeah.
What on earth could have motivated somebody to carry out an attack like this?
I believe the motive is robbery. The male who entered used force and violence by assaulting Eileen in the address, then demanded cash and gold.
And we can just see some of the images, Paul, of the injuries that poor Eileen sustained. Just terrible. We talked about items that were stolen. One thing that was mentioned, which was of huge sentimental value, was Eileen's wedding ring. Is that something that's managed to be recovered?
We've not recovered it, and we desperately want to recover it for the family. That's what they want. It was given to Eileen by her late husband, Andrew, on their wedding day. So it's incredibly important that we get that back.
Absolutely, we
It's
heard
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead with the description.
The description is it's a gold wedding band with a crosshatch design on it.
Yeah, and we heard from Eileen's sons, David and John, in the film. It would mean so much to them. Let's talk about the suspect. What description can you give us of this person?
He's a white male. He's 5'8", slim build, and he was wearing a black coat with a hood over the top of his face.
So, Paul, for people that are watching today, how can they help with this appeal? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the community of Stretford to come forward, really. 8 years have passed since this incident. People may have not felt brave enough to come forward and give information at the time, and I ask them to think and just pick up the phone and call us.
Absolutely. And over time, allegiances change. People might have fallen out and now be thinking, actually, it's time to do the right thing.
It is, yeah. I believe that this person would have confided in somebody close to them. 8 years have passed. I want them to search their conscience, do the right thing for the family, and come forward so we can get justice for Eileen and that family.
So important. Just finally to note as well, Greater Manchester Police are offering a £50,000 reward, aren't they, for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the individual responsible.
Yes, there is.
Paul, thanks so much for coming in and telling us more. Now, all the ways to get in touch with us are on the screen, just stand by the clock, or you can contact Greater Manchester Police, which is on the number below. Now, in the middle of February this year, police launched an investigation to find missing person Julie Buckley. Joining us now is DI Richard Stott to tell us more and to explain how this has morphed into a murder inquiry. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Richard. So what more can you tell us about this case, first of all?
Yeah, so on the 13th of February this year, Julie was reported missing. We had a last sighting of her on the 28th of January in a budgeon store in March in Cambridgeshire. The following day, we launched it as a no-body murder investigation. We've got the still here of the last sighting of Julie.
What do we know about Julie herself as a person?
Yeah, so Julie was 54. She was local to the area, having lived in Wisbeach and the March area. She's described as sort of quite small, quite quiet. She doesn't have much family, but sort of had friends around the March area.
And as you said, one of the last sightings of Julie was in the budgeon shop. We've actually got a CCTV clip of her in that shop, haven't we? Let's just take a look at it. Just talk us through what we're seeing here, Richard.
Yeah. So we see Julie up at the till here purchasing some items. She seems quite chatty. Nothing seems amiss. Yeah, it just seems a kind of very regular occurrence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just from watching the clip, she doesn't seem distressed at all or anything like that, does she?
No.
So this was on the 28th of January. What happened after that date?
So we believe that she went to an address that she's linked to in Christchurch, and we believe that she was murdered at that address the following day.
And what has led you and the team, Richard, to actually turn this into a murder investigation?
So quite early on in the missing investigation, we found some blood in an address that Julie's linked to. That has been confirmed as Julie's blood, and the circumstances around it have obviously raised our suspicion and concern.
Yes. Because a passerby had reported something as well, hadn't they?
Yeah, so we're obviously looking at movements around the area, and this area here is a bridge on 16-foot drain, which is nearby Christchurch. A witness saw a car stopped at about 9:30 on the 30th. It was kind of in a bit of a strange position on the wrong side of the road, and they believe they saw some people throwing something into the water. It was very out of the ordinary. They kind of really noticed it as a standout situation.
As you say, this was Bedlam Bridge, and this is actually the reason why you deployed some specialist dive teams to actually search this body of water.
Yeah, I mean, people in the area know we've been doing some widespread searches, but we had a dive team in this location to try and find anything.
Let's take a look at a map that we've got for context. Before we do move on, what can you tell us about this picture? This is a different area, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is a bridge further down called Boots Bridge. A man had been fishing, had spotted some hair, which we believe to be human hair. That's gone off for testing to see if it is Julie's hair.
Okay.
But obviously it's another area of interest for us trying to recover.
Yeah, so you're waiting to hear on that.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this map then now. Just explain what we've got here and how these points are significant.
So over on that side you've got Budgeon's store in March, which is our last sighting of Julie. Christchurch is the village where the address that she's linked to, and then down the middle you've got 16-foot drain, which is a long straight narrow bit of waterway, and the two bridges here are where we've had the sort of incident and the find of her hair.
Okay, and what about Julie's family, Richard? You mentioned that she's got a grown-up son. I mean, I'm sure that they're desperate for answers, aren't they?
Yeah, it's very difficult, the kind of not knowing, and that's why we're sort of wanting to appeal today for information, because we really want to find Julie to sort of give some sort of rest of mind to the family.
Absolutely. So the viewers that are watching this morning, how can they help? What information do you need from them?
Yeah, so it's kind of a widespread appeal. You know, we're obviously looking for anyone with information about what happened to Julie. We're looking for people who may have dash cam from around the 29th, 30th, around that area and along 16-foot drain. And also we're appealing to people who might be out walking their dogs, or people going fishing around that area, around Christchurch. If they notice anything out of the ordinary, farmers, landowners, if they notice some disturbed land, we're asking them to call in, let us know. We've got search-trained officers that will be able to go out and see if we can find Julie.
Thanks, Richard, because as you say, it could be the smallest piece of information from anybody, but it could be key to this investigation.
Yeah.
Appreciate you telling us more about it. This was a recent event, so please, if you do have information, then get in touch using the details by the clock. First this morning, in a case that was woefully underreported at the time. In 2023, 48-year-old Fiona Holm was murdered by her partner. Today, police want to find out where her remains are so her family can grieve her properly. Just to warn you, this film contains some upsetting scenes.
I have a picture in my bedroom of my mum. I see it every day and I just think, I need to know where you are.
When I read the name, I got goosebumps on my arms because I knew that he had murdered another woman.
"48-year-old Fiona Holm lived alone with family close by.
My mum, she was just one of them people that were just one in a million. She was so generous.
She'd brighten up your day. She would, definitely.
I was born with sickle cell anemia and I've been going in and out of hospital since birth. My mum's always been there. She's always been supportive. She was more like my best friend when I was growing up. And it was more like she just wanted to do the same things what I wanted to do. Like she wanted to party, she wanted to show us her dance moves. She thought she was the best dancer in the world.
I think she was about 35 when she got diagnosed with autism, ADHD. She's basically got a mind of a 15-year-old. She was too trusting. She didn't see danger, she didn't see bad in anyone. She was very vulnerable, and a lot of people did take advantage of her.
In January 2023, Fiona had told her family she'd started a relationship with a man in his 60s.
My sister said to me she was going to some man's house she just met. So I was like, well, let me talk to him, because I didn't want to go into someone I didn't know. I spoke to him, he was kind of rude on the phone. He was, I think, a handyman. His name was Cole Cooper.
Around the time Fiona met Carl, she had started seeing less of her family.
It was March 23. I was really ill with my sickle cell and I had a lot of blood transfusions. I was in and out of hospital. I thought it was quite strange because I couldn't get hold of my mum sometimes when I was calling her.
Then a month later, Fiona called the police.
She disclosed that Cooper had threatened her that evening with a crowbar. And she also told officers that he'd previously stabbed her in the arm with a screwdriver at her home address a few weeks before.
Cooper was given a domestic violence prevention order, banning him from contact with Fiona for 28 days. Then a few months later, police were called a second time.
On the 29th of June 2023, Fiona was reported missing by her social worker.
The social worker called me and asked if I've spoken to Fiona. She was trying to get hold of her. She said she went to her place, no one was there. She's been ringing her phone, no answer. So I said, right, I'm going to go and have a look for her.
I went to my mum's house to see if she was there or if anyone in Blackheath knew where she was. Everybody said they haven't seen her for about a month. Then I went in the kitchen. Something just said to me, pull out the bed sheets in the washing machine, and it actually had all mould on it.
Fiona clearly hadn't been home for some time, so Elise and Savannah decided to visit Carl Cooper's house to see if she was there.
When we arrived at Carl Cooper's house, all of his windows were painted white. So my partner scraped it and we looked in and it just looked like a cluttered house.
We was calling Fiona.
Yeah.
We shouting for Fiona, because really we thought that he was keeping her against her will.
The house was empty, so they reluctantly left. But when Fiona didn't call her mum on her birthday, Elise and her brother decided to visit Carl Cooper's house again.
We noticed a man with a van on Coles Drive. We asked the van driver if we could look in the back of his van. I noticed my sister's furry jacket. When the man gave it to me, it smelled of my sister and I was just sick. I was physically sick. I just knew then there's something bad's happened to her.
Unbeknownst to them, it turned out that Carl Cooper was already on police's radar.
In February 2022, we began a murder investigation of a woman who died in her flat in Woolwich.
The body of a 41-year-old woman called Naomi Hunt had been found by her neighbour. She'd been stabbed multiple times.
Looking at Naomi's life, we knew that she'd been in contact with a man, and that man's name was Carl Cooper. We know from previous police reports that Naomi had made against Carl that he was jealous and possessive. She'd reported him previously for stalking her and turning up at her address unannounced and refusing to leave. The case against Carl Cooper was very difficult for us because we didn't have any forensic evidence to suggest that he was involved in Naomi's murder. We had no witnesses. He himself had been interviewed and said, yes, he was there, but he left and she was still alive. And it was difficult for us at that time to prove that he was the person responsible, and we didn't have sufficient evidence to take the case to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Cooper was released on bail due to lack of evidence, and then 11 months later, he started his relationship with Fiona, who lived just 4 miles away from Naomi. When DCI Kate Blackburn heard about the disappearance of Fiona Holm, and that she'd been in a relationship with the chief suspect in a murder case, she acted immediately.
We'd been investigating Naomi's murder at that point for about 14 months, and I got goosebumps on my arms when I read Carl Cooper's name because I knew that he had murdered another woman. I went straight to my boss and I said that we needed to take on the investigation. I knew that both investigations would be stronger together and would provide us with the best evidence to secure a conviction. So I instructed officers to arrest him at that point and bring him to the police station for questioning.
Is it Carl?
Yes.
Carl, you're under arrest, OK, for the murder of Fiona Holm. You didn't have to say anything, it may harm your offence if you do not
By this time, Fiona had been missing for more than 2 weeks. Cooper was arrested for murder.
Oh, I would never forget that feeling.
So why them choose me? Why them choose me?
They brought us to the police station and said they've arrested him on suspicion of murder.
In that moment, I didn't want to process it. I didn't believe it, that he done something so serious to my mum.
With Cooper in custody, DCI Blackburn and her team needed to track Fiona's last known movements.
We conducted extensive witness inquiries and CCTV inquiries and found footage of Fiona in Verdant Lane on the 20th of June 2023 at about 9:30 at night.
This was very close to Carl Cooper's house.
Cooper said, I saw Fiona that night, we went to the shop, we went back to my house, but she left by dawn.
But they had a huge breakthrough when they viewed some body-worn footage a fellow officer had taken in Cooper's living room 3 months earlier.
That showed a very different living room to the living room that we were faced with. There was a corner sofa, the TV was working, there was a glass coffee table, there was a rug on the floor, there was space to sit down on the sofa, and it was very much a livable, usable room. However, when we attended in June 2023, that wasn't the case. The front windows had been painted white, which appeared to be quite odd. You could see that the living room had been completely stripped out of wallpaper, the curtains had been cut, and it was no longer a usable room and had been filled with junk from the rest of the house. There was a corner sofa that used to be in the living room at Carl Cooper's flat. 2/3 of that had been removed and taken to a waste disposal site. And we could see that the sofa, which was a white pleather material, looked like the covering had been ripped from that sofa.
Police suspected Cooper had the sofa disposed of to hide crucial evidence. Forensic examinations of the house uncovered more vital clues.
We found blood belonging to Fiona on the walls of the property. There was also blood on a router in the corner of the property. Cooper would set fires around the time that Fiona went missing. We believe that was to dispose of evidence.
Whilst the findings confirmed everyone's worst fears, they didn't answer the biggest question.
What happened that night? Where is her body?
Police charged Cooper with Fiona's murder.
The blood evidence in the house was significant because until we had the confirmation that the blood on the walls was Fiona, we had very little forensic evidence or any direct evidence to say that Carl Cooper was responsible for either murder.
In June 2024, Carl Cooper was found guilty of the murders of Fiona and Naomi. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for each murder.
We all just started crying.
And then I had to make the call to my mum. Yeah, that was hard. Because you're happy, but you're not. How can you be happy about that?
And then when they gave him a chance to speak, he was just You could tell they had no remorse whatsoever. He didn't care.
I thought that he was going to tell us where her body was after he got found guilty and sentenced, but he just walked away.
The family just want to lay Fiona to rest, and so the police investigation continues to try and find her body.
She's out there on her own. We don't know where she is. She's just... It's horrible.
Most of us are not sleeping, not eating properly. My nan's always waiting by the phone, waiting for a phone call to say that they found my mum's body.
You can't move on because we can't say goodbye to her properly.
We can't grieve properly either. The thought of never laying my mum to rest, there's no words for it, to be honest with you. I just can't explain it. It's just so horrible and so upsetting because my mum doesn't deserve it.
This really has been so incredibly hard for Fiona's family. I'm joined now by DCI Kate Blackburn from the Met Police. Thanks so much for being with us in the studio. We obviously heard in the film there that Carl Cooper has been found guilty of 2 murders. So what do you want to appeal for today?
Yes, so Carl Cooper was convicted last year of the murders of Naomi Hunt and Fiona Holm. But today, my appeal is about Fiona. So we haven't recovered Fiona's body. And what I want to do today is ask anyone who has any knowledge of where Fiona may be to come forward. But I'd also like to just talk about Fiona, because although Fiona did have vulnerabilities, she was an incredibly resilient woman. She was very much loved by her family. And to have her back would mean the world to them, as you've heard in the video.
So let's talk, Kate, about Fiona's movements and where she was going the last time that she was seen.
Yeah, so Fiona left a property in Verdant Lane and she walked towards Brownhill Road. Carl Cooper lived in Broadfield Road, which was a couple of roads along, and we know that she ended up that night in Broadfield Road at Carl Cooper's home address. But we have no footage after her in Verdant Lane.
So she was never seen again after that point. And when was she officially reported missing?
She was reported missing on the 29th of June by her social worker.
So let's talk in a bit more detail about Carl Cooper then, Kate. Anything that might help the viewers that are watching today?
So Carl Cooper's in his 60s. From the photo that we have of him, he looks, a man in his 60s, but he would often wear a cap and quite trendy clothes and trainers, so he would look maybe a lot younger than 60s. He's got some missing teeth in the front of his mouth, and he would also speak with quite a heavy Jamaican accent. He lived in Catford, and we know that he had links to the Brixton area of London, and also would travel to Reading. He liked to travel around on buses. He was a plumber, handyman, so he may have done work at people's houses as sort of cash-in-hand work.
And when it comes to the murder of Fiona, you believe that he could have had help with this?
I think it's likely that he could have had help, yes, because Fiona was murdered in Carl Cooper's home address. I know that Carl doesn't drive, so I think it's likely that somebody may have helped him, potentially even inadvertently.
How can the viewers watching this morning help with this case?
So I'm really looking for any information, and that could be about anything. It could be something that people think is fairly insignificant, but that could be the missing piece for our investigation. I'm looking for people that may have employed Carl, as in a handyman or a plumber, in their address, or people that may have met him, associated with him. Or did you lend him your vehicle? Has he asked for a lift anywhere around that time period in June, so between the 20th and the 28th of June 2023. So it's a little time ago, but I'd ask people to just try and remember back to that time. And as I said, it may be that the person who might have helped him did so inadvertently, so they may not really have understood what they were doing. And I just want to reiterate that my aim is to find Fiona. So that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. And finally, there is a reward in connection to this case, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. The Met Police are offering up to £20,000 for information leading to the recovery of Fiona's remains.
Kate, thanks so much for taking the time to come into studio and tell us more about this.
Thank you.
As always, our contact details are below or can be found using our QR code, and the number to call is 08000 468 999.
First this morning, how an evening out for concert goers in Brixton quickly turned to devastation as a crowd crush claimed the lives of 2 people.
I spoke to Rebecca about just 3 days before the event. I never knew that that was the last time I would see her.
Gabby went to work to keep people safe so they could enjoy a concert, and she never made it home.
In December 2022, the lives of a number of families were changed forever.
Rebecca was full of life when she was young. She's always running around the house. She was always smiling. She's always eager to help people.
After graduating, Rebecca Ikumelo became a community nurse. She lived in East London with her 2 sons.
Rebecca was a wonderful mom. Rebecca was very, very caring, very empathetic. That kind of make me proud.
If you can imagine the most hyperactive kid in the classroom, the most smiley, crazy person, then that's Gabby. She was my best friend and we told each other everything and we spent the majority of our lives together. Although I am the older sibling, if I was bullied, she would come to my rescue immediately. When Mum's health started to decline, she stepped in. She was extremely protective and she loved looking after people.
Me and Gabby had been together for 3.5 years. She was great with my children and took them on as her own. Gabby was wonderful. She was just so happy to be alive.
Gabby Hutchinson lived in Gravesend in Kent and worked in security.
Protecting people was one of Gabby's passions and she just wanted to keep everybody safe.
On the morning of December 15th, 2022, she took an exam in drugs detection to help boost her career in security.
I was in a cafe. Gabby came in, beaming ear to ear, because she thought she'd done great and thought she'd passed. And we just celebrated the fact that we knew she'd have another qualification under her belt.
Meanwhile, in Beckton in East London, Rebecca dropped her kids off at her mum's and then got ready to go out. She had tickets to see one of her favourite artists, Asher Kay, perform at Brixton Academy.
But this occasion was special. She dressed for the occasion. She was happy, you know.
Gabby did security work at Brixton Academy, but it was her day off.
We come home, wrapped up some Christmas presents, and then Gabby had received a phone call from her manager asking if she could cover that shift tonight. Took the job straight away, didn't even second guess it. Got ready, we said goodbye and she left for work. Last thing she said to me was, "I'll wake you up when I'm home."
People have been critically injured in what's believed to have been a crash at a concert in South London.
Emergency services were called to the O2 Academy, Brixton.
Police are investigating whether people turned up to see the Nigerian singer Asher Kay at Brixton's O2 Academy without a ticket.
I received a phone call, this is about 2 a.m. from her brother, and he said that Rebecca is in the hospital.
Gabby's manager told me that there'd been an incident and I needed to get to St Thomas's Hospital straight away. On the way to the hospital, I'd received another phone call to say that she'd been crushed.
I was taken to the room where Rebecca was being treated. She was on life support.
When we finally got to the hospital, they just told us that she was in a coma. She was just laying there, like she was asleep. She looked so beautiful. But she wasn't there. And I just remember going up to her and giving her a hug and a kiss and just saying, please wake up.
Received a phone call from Rebecca's brother. The next thing he told me is that she's gone, you know.
When you're watching your loved one fight for their life, there's always hope. But on the 18th of December, we was told that Gabby wasn't going to live.
When she went, I was holding her hand and watching her heart stop. That was my heart stopping. How do you go from spending every second with someone to spending all that time alone?
I saw the doctor. I said, no, I can't go and see her. My heart was broken. The shock was very, very difficult to process that time. It was devastating news. Rebecca's boys, I think they're actually feeling a lot worse than us because they didn't know where Mom is. Every time that door opens, they think it's their mom that is coming in.
Gabby went to work and she never made it home. Our family just broke after that. Gabs is literally in the centre of our world. Very traumatic and an extremely hard loss.
Losing Gabby has affected me in ways I didn't realise could happen to a person. There's no other words to describe it apart from your heart is being ripped apart. And that all comes from other people's actions. And it's indescribable.
We are still waiting for answers as to what happened that night.
We know people have videos, they have pictures, they know things, and if they would come forward to help the police in their investigation, it would bring a lot of closure, I suppose.
The most that we can do is find out what really happened and why it happened and maybe stop it from happening again.
It's unimaginable the pain that these families are going through, and they really do need some answers. So I'm joined now by DCI Nigel Penny from the Met, who is the Senior Investigating Officer on this case. Good to have you with us in the studio this morning. We actually appealed about this in March of last year. Just tell us what's happened since then, Nigel.
So since then, we've identified 6 people from the images that were shown. But we're here today to show 6 further images that we need to identify these people.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start by recapping on exactly what happened the night of the attack.
So on the night of the 22nd of December 2022, Afrobeat artist Ashake was due to perform at the O2 Brixton Academy in South London. The doors were meant to open at 7 p.m. and the crowd and the attendees that were urged, if they didn't have a ticket, not to turn up. However, there was a mass of people that did turn up, and as a result, the doors were closed around 9 o'clock due to reports of ticketless fans barging past the security to get into the venue. Around 10 o'clock, the doors were breached, causing a massive stampede within the venue, which resulted, sadly, in the tragic loss of lives of Rebecca Ikemello, concert goer, and Gabby Hutchinson, the security dog handler.
It really is devastating, isn't it, Nigel?
It is. There's also a 22-year-old female who's still seriously ill in hospital with life-changing injuries.
When it comes to an investigation of this sort, and you've got so many people that are attending the event, everybody's probably got a mobile phone capturing camera footage. Where do you even start?
Well, we've assessed in detail hundreds and hundreds of hours of CCTV. We've gathered thousands of documents which we need to assess in detail, and we've interviewed a number of people in relation to the events on the night.
Let's talk about these 6 men then that you're trying to locate.
Yeah, so these 6 people here, we want to identify. If you recognise yourself here, or if you know who these people are, I urge you to get into contact with us because we believe that they hold vital information on the events of the night that could seriously assist the investigation, also bring answers to the families.
Yeah, as you say, it's worth just taking note of these 6 people, and if you do recognise them, come forward. If there's anyone sat at home that's actually worried, though, about coming forward, what would you say to them? Well,
I'd just say that if you think about Rebecca and Rebecca's family, Gabby's family, and the 22-year-old female still in hospital, Rebecca was a caring and loving member of the community. She's left 2 children without a mother. Gabby was, a doted, loving daughter to their family and to their partner, and also nobody goes to work and doesn't expect to come home.
No, it's so true, isn't it? We heard from Rebecca's father, Anthony, in the film there. He had such powerful words to say about his daughter, as you say, who leaves behind 2 sons, and Gabby as well, listening to the sister, Kelsey, and the partner, Phoebe. It would mean so much to all of them to get some answers, and that's what they deserve. So thank you for being with us again in the studio this morning. We'll keep those images on our website, so please do take a closer look. If you recognise any of these 6 men, then please do get in touch.